All right, here's every single Warhammer 40k faction re-explained part 1 by Bricky. This is a 2-hour Warhammer video. So we're gonna watch this and then we're gonna head off, and I will be spending time with the rest of my day with my family.
Far past, there was no war. Our galaxy was, for a long time, fairly empty and quiet. The first known species to appear during this time are known only as the Old Ones, cosmic entities that traveled across the galaxy with ease and seeded life through the stars. Shortly thereafter, a new species began to arise. The Necron tier. Evolving under the harshness of a devastatingly powerful star, the short-lived and irradiated Necron tier try to find the secret to eternal life and to be freed from their terrible existence. As they expand through the stars, they find the Old Ones and they plead to them to share the secrets of the universe and grant them purchase from their short and painful existence. The Old Ones respond with a lol and a lamau, and with their immense power, they force them back to their homeworld. The Necron tier, filled with rage and hatred, make it their duty to get revenge on the Old Ones. A revenge that would come swiftly as a chance encounter with other gods gave them a solution. These other gods were known as the C'tan, a race of highly powerful star-consuming entities. Do not fear, young mortals, for we, the C'tan, will provide you with the immortality you seek. Come now, won't you shake a poor sinner's hand? Quoted from Mephetron, the Deceiver. The Necron tier accepted the C'tan's offer of immortality, but believe it or not, this turned out to be a ruse. A trick. The C'tan crafted gigantic furnaces and began the process of biotransference. The Necron tier willingly walked line by line into the furnace engines made by gods who devour stars and had their souls consumed instead. The short-lived, irradiated, and cancer-inflicted race of the Necron tier ceased to be, and the immortal, soulless Necrons remained. Now backed by the immense power of the C'tan, the Necrons rally against the Old Ones, and the bitter conflict in the stars at this time is known as the War in Heaven. Despite creating various races and entities to aid them in this battle,
probably one of my favorite
the Old
races
Ones are overwhelmed and eradicated down to the last, due to the sheer power of the C'tan fat off the souls of the Necron tier, and with an army of unthinkable robotic slaves at their behest. However, the C'tan are greedy, spiteful gods, and when there was no foe worth killing, they turn on each other. The Necrons then put their sights towards the C'tan and lay waste to them, securing their freedom. The once subservient Necrons now control their former masters. Worn out and weakened by these wars, the Necrons, under their leader Zarek, the Silent King, lie dormant, with a plan to eventually wake and reclaim control over the galaxy. Over millions of years, empires rise and they fall. The species created by the Old Ones have footholds over the galaxy, but on a pale blue dot in the thick of all this conflict, humanity begins to evolve. And for the most part, the basic path of humanity's evolution remains the same as it is now for almost 15,000 years. Right now, in the 21st century, this is canon. You, right now, Twitch streamer reacting to this video, you existed at a point in the Warhammer universe. But with time, humanity's ambition and the power of their technology becomes unmatched, and the golden age of expansion begins. Humanity starts to branch out through the stars with powerful tools used for agriculture, mining, and expansion. Some branches of humanity would eventually settle far away from Earth itself, and around this time, the psychic ability of humans are greatly expanded, and what we begin to know as Psykers
Heretic.
appear. But despite all the progress, things would begin to collapse. The machines created to aid humanity would turn on them in M23, an event known as the Cybernetic Revolt, and trade would begin to collapse due to the immaterial warp, aka actual hell, beginning to cause ruptures in space and time. These warp stones would separate humanity, and this would be what is known as the Age of Strife. The warp,
Is this
a sea
before
of souls
they
storing
didn't
all
like psychers? Is this before they didn't like psychic abilities? Before the Emperor? Is this the reason why they're not liking psychers now?
Emotion and the souls of those who have passed on begin fluctuating into something terrible, as far on the horizon, something horrendous was brewing. You see, the warp isn't just a random assortment of chaotic energy. It is fairly well organized thanks to those living in the galaxy. The warp itself acts as an afterlife of sorts, and the actions of the innumerable amount of creatures who live in the galaxy have manifested a pantheon of organized entities known as the Forces of Chaos. At their helm are three major entities: Khorne, Nurgle, and Tzeentch. However, a fourth one, Slaanesh, was about to be born. The ancient Eldar were one of the first species created by the old ones, and due to their extreme and unbridled excess, the birthing of Slaanesh tore a hole in the galaxy and forever split the Eldar into those of the Craftworld, who sought to bring their species back together, and those of the Drukhari, who wished to continue what caused the birth of Slaanesh in the first place. The birthing of this fourth chaos god settled the warp storms of the Imperium and ended the Age of Strife, but humanity was still fractured. So one man revealed himself and spearheaded an immense attempt to reunite all the fractured pieces of humanity. That man was the Emperor of Mankind. After reclaiming the Emperor of Mankind, the Emperor embarked on the Unification Wars to unite humanity under the banner of the Imperium of Man. However, due to the very long and devastating impact of the Age of Strife, humanity as we know it is not the
that's
same.
like maximum aura right there.
Earth, the Emperor would need more than mere men. Great beings known as the Thunder Warriors were recruited by the Emperor to reclaim the Earth with ease. But these warriors are a blunt tool and had overstayed their welcome. He would need something better, and that solution would be known as the Space Marines. Superhuman soldiers that will have the skill and cunning exponentially greater than the mortal man. These new warriors would be commanded by an elite group of his very own sons known as the Primarchs. Unfortunately though, Daddy didn't charge the baby monitor, and his 18 sons would be stolen by the forces of chaos and scattered across the galaxy. This would begin the Great Crusade, a monumental task to take back the stars in the name of humanity and reclaim the lost Primarch sons. However, he would need the fires of industry to make this happen. Looking to the distant cousins of Mars, the Emperor signed a treaty with the technologically irradiated hellscape of the Red Planet and allowed the cult of the Machine God, the Mechanicum, to supply his crusade.
I like the Mechanicum. I like the machine people. They're pretty awesome.
While Space Marines were the tip of the spear, their numbers paled to the vast might of the Imperial Army and Navy. The Astra Militarum and their seemingly endless numbers make up the bulk of the fighting force for humanity, supplied by the intelligence and
kind of like mad
of
scientists if you think about
Imperium, such as rogue traders and assassins. Due to the lack of connectivity between the worlds, what a society had become over thousands of years became mysterious and varied. Tools once used for harvesting and agriculture now are being used as machines of war in the form of Imperial
you can see Slaanesh's demons down there.
Would even be changed further and become unrecognizable to the average human, with differences in size, skin color, appendages, cat ears sometimes. Some would go so far to become their own galactic societies. Like
you mean to tell me we got cat girls in Warhammer lore?
of the Galactic Core and their immense supercomputers, forming the Leagues of Votann. After an incredible amount of effort and books, the lost sons of the Emperor would be reunited, and the
Dude,
Imperium
look at that fucking halo on him. That's the Emperor with his giant fiery sword. That's the freaking Emperor. He has maximum aura.
Man would be firmly established. This, however, would not last. Be it intentional or accidental, the Emperor would not reveal to his sons the true nature of the galaxy and the terrors of the warp. And this oversight
looks
would
cool,
result
though,
in one of the most impactful
in a
wars
non-heretical
in humanity's
way.
history. The favorite son of the Emperor, Horus, would fall
the
to
Horus
the powers
Heresy.
of chaos and turn on his father.
Oh.
This betrayal, this backstabbing,
His
this
own favorite
heresy,
son.
this Horus heresy would result in a split in the Imperium
He said
with
the
devastating
thing.
consequences. Half of the Emperor's loyal sons would fall to chaos and become the Chaos Space Marines,
Oh,
along with the
shit.
forces of the Dark Mechanicum and the Chaos Knights.
Oh,
the conflict
no.
would result in the absolute obliteration of Horus and the physical death of the Emperor himself. The near-dead body of the Emperor would be placed on the Golden Throne to serve
Will
as
the
a
Emperor
beacon of
ever
humanity
become
and allow for the continued
his
ability
former
to
self?
travel the stars, protected by his
Will he ever
most
achieve his
loyal,
former glory?
the Adeptus Custodes. The Imperium would be vulnerable during this age of rebirth, and Terra would find itself under siege by one of the most formidable species in the galaxy, the Orcs. As time went on and memories of the Emperor's vision began to fade, the Emperor would become less of a head of state and more of a religious figure. And the Imperium would change to reflect this. The leadership on a planet would be at the behest of the High Lords of Terra, and their actions would be courtesy of the incomparable power and authority of the Inquisition.
Is he still conscious, though? Is the Emperor still, like, kind of pulling the strings?
The zealots of the Imperium would intensify and create a brand new era known as the Age of Apostasy. And this ecclesiarchal command of the Imperium would end up with one of the strongest fighting forces of Terra, the Adeptus Sororitas.
Oh,
Over time,
she's so
this
cool.
age would
Oh,
come
they're
to
so
pass,
cool.
and we would approach the 40th millennium of Warhammer 40,000.
I love the Sororitas.
Which, you guessed it, 40th millennium. Over time, this age would come to pass, and we would approach the 40th millennium of Warhammer 40,000. Which, you guessed it, would come with its own form of problems. A primitive species once found during a recon mission would be able to evolve in relative secrecy for 6,000 years, becoming a highly advanced coalition of aliens known as the Tau Empire.
Oh, the Taus!
And if the threats of the galaxy weren't
You mean the
bad
freaking
enough, there are
Gundam
threats
people?
from outside the galaxy. As a monster has begun to wrap its tendrils around the Milky Way, the Tyranids, monsters that serve a psychic hive mind and present tactics previously unseen in the Milky Way. Be it a direct assault with their monstrous bug-like presence, or through the more covert gene stealer cults, the presence of yet another threat in the galaxy is proving to be overwhelming to the Imperium. In the 41st millennium, there is no peace among the stars. At any point, your life can and will be threatened by the Xenos races uncountable, or by the arch enemy of chaos within, or
I'm
by
not
the
saying they look cool because I'm also kind of a bug.
Itself.
I'm not a bug sympathizer.
In the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. Forget the power of technology and science, or the safety of promise and understanding. For in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.
And hammers. 40,000 of them, to be precise. Here.
A fantastic job once again, Mr. Kurz, the Night Haunter himself. Oh, didn't you love that, my faithful audience? Once again, we have another criminal over the course of 6 hours break every single bone in his body.
Oh, hell nah.
Once again, our glorious leader has brought the crime rate to 0%.
0%? Impossible.
Strawman News. I'm your host, Bricky. Thank you once again for joining us. Our top stories for tonight. The weather forecast appears to be rainy with extra dark, so make sure you pack those extra batteries for your lamp packs. And of course, let's not forget the fantastic gang violence problem we're currently having. Oh, I'm sorry, what's that? Oh right, it's gone. It's looking to be a chilly one tonight as well, so make sure your skin capes are nice and tight. Wait, hold on, one moment.
Does Bricky edit this himself, or does he have someone edit it for him?
Adamantium reserves
Because this is
have
impressive.
Wait, I'm sorry. Self-harm rates have gone down to 0%.
Love yourself.
The Night Haunter smiled?
Love yourself, chat. Self-love. Keep yourself safe.
One thing. It is the Strawman News' great privilege to bring some color back in your life with the brand new 3-part Gamer Subs drop exclusively on this here news network. That's right, your esteemed host, Bricky, myself, is dropping a 3-part Gamer Subs release.
Holy
pre-order available now and only for a couple of weeks. Not only does it include a completely brand new artwork reskin of the Sweet 6-pack flavor,
Jesus,
one of
Lord
the
have
highest
mercy.
selling flavors in the entirety of Gamer Subs, but it also comes with the first ever all over print Gamer Subs 32-ounce jug. And if that isn't enough for you, if the phenomenal drink holder is not enough for you, we have a desk mat to go along with it. That's right, the Herculean look of the brand new
I was looking at every part of her body. What do you want me to say? I was looking at her pussy?
Beyond belief. But this time, we're talking taste, we're talking Atlas, we're talking smooth. And if that wasn't enough, I, your co-host specifically, should you pre-order all 3 of these items, will personally hand sign a note for you, personally, for supporting this network. All of this you can receive for 10% off if you go down in the description of this video and click the link, or go to gamersubs.com/Bricky and use code Bricky. Save 10% off with code Bricky. Bring some
10% off
into your life and increase production across the board for our glorious leader,
now,
the Night Haunter. Thank you, Gamer
out of
for sponsoring the Strawman News, and let us move on to our next scheduled program. 5 years ago, I made every Warhammer 40k faction explained. A passion project of mine for a universe that I enjoyed so much. Its main purpose was to be a drawbridge, the separation between the layman who had only ever seen the big armored blue man situated neatly next to a Wetzel's Pretzels, and then the hardcore Warhammer lore nerd. That was just too wide, and there was nothing bridging these two together. Since 2020, Warhammer has exploded in popularity thanks to COVID, quality game updates, and a few excellent video games, and a couple mini-series. The sheer volume of people who have told me they have purchased miniatures.
You're right, he does have a gray beard. I think it kind of looks good though.
Due to that video alone makes me feel as if Games
Wait, he's a
Workshop
gray
owes
beard
me
from
commission.
Skyrim.
However, that video is incomplete. I was not a casual fan, but I was also not a hardcore lore junkie. In the 5 years since that video's release, multiple channels have sprouted up, and the drawbridge between casual to the obsessed has never been wider or easier to traverse. Even I, myself, have been a part of Adeptus Ridiculous, a podcast teaching lore in a much simpler and condensed form. Needless to say,
white hair is pretty common at that age, I would think, right?
So much more than just Spaceman shoots big gun. It has also grown substantially from its origins, being a Warhammer Fantasy spin-off just in space. Now, it is a black library filled with immensely deep characters, difficult themes, and even some tear-jerking stories. It is a backdrop for a million stories over a million worlds, and I did not see its true depth in 2020. But now, I'd like to share what I've learned. We just had a brief summary of the world and each faction that takes place during it. And we did that because to truly understand each faction, we must understand what makes them the way they are. And to do so, we need to begin in chronological order, discussing their origins, their culture, their powers, and of course, what makes them oh so grimdark. So let's begin with the group that started it all and sing praise to the infinite empire.
The Necrons.
As mentioned before, the Necron tier were the original form of the Necrons, an alien race far away from us that lived short, painful lives due to the irradiation of their star.
I am indeed a Necron fan.
A sort of cancer, a space cancer of sorts. The Necrons are very much inspired by the ancient
I remember. So I went to a store that has like little figurines for Warhammer, and they had a figurine for this specific guy, but I forget what his name is, and it looks so awesome, and it's so expensive, but I want it really badly.
Egyptian aesthetic, but unlike the windswept dunes commonly associated with it, the irradiated hellscape the Necrons here endured was far
Shard
from picturesque.
Of Catan.
This also translates into their hierarchy. They are a race of nobles and peasants. Most of the peasants would often live for their very short amount of time, only a couple of decades, while the nobles tended to have better care and would live a little bit longer, but still far less than the average lifespan of a human, even today in the 21st century. The leader of the Necrons was Zarek, the Silent King. He was the one who took the deal with the Catan and the Deceiver. Of course, he wasn't aware of the fact that they were known as the Deceiver at the time, but the whole species was blinded
as one would not know
after being debased by the old ones on their quest to cure their illness. The sheer pain that underwent the Necron race can't be understated, as their fear was manic. The Catan are, of course, gods that eat stars, and when the leader of your species tells you to march into the gigantic green furnaces to ascend to immortality, you march. The scenes from these are long lines of both the peasantry and nobles clutching their loved ones in a frantic act to save their
If I told you to march in these machines to ascend to immortality, would you guys do it? I mean, you have to, because I literally am your leader. I literally created you guys. Like, you didn't exist before I came along. You guys are lamp champs.
Own lives. Many of them already inflicted in the late stages of this space cancer, some of them crawling into the biotransference furnaces, trying to outrace death itself. Without
overthrow the moth.
Death was the one who made these to begin with. What came out the other side was a soulless husk. And I say that literally. A soul is not an abstract concept like it is in our world. An immaterial version of oneself discussed
but they look cool,
so it's worth. Philosophy. No, in Warhammer, a soul is a real, tangible item of oneself. And the Catan basically were just like to every single person who went in their furnaces. If you were a peasant, you came out a Necron warrior, and you as an individual have ceased to be. You have no mind, you have no soul, and your body, as you know it, is made of an extremely advanced mass of re-knitting living metal known as necrodermis. You cannot think for yourself, for you do not have a brain to think with.
No
All
bitches,
you do now
no
is
soul,
await
no
protocols
mind.
from your overlords, which are the nobles who came out of the furnaces with their minds intact, not their souls, mind you, but their minds are very much intact. These nobles now have command protocols, and they are able to command all of their peasantry and do with them whatever they wish. Zarek, the Silent King, is the most advanced of all the Necrons, a perfect metallic version of himself with incredible
Are they also
power
psychic? Like, do they have
His
psychic
strength
powers?
allowed him to lead the undead and the unthinking armies of the Necrons to battle against the Catan when they were at their weakest due to their incessant infighting, and then
they're just really good
freedom.
technologically,
But
right?
gods cannot die. So in reality, what occurred is the Catan were shattered into thousands of pieces, and each shard of their god was trapped in a stasis vault and mind controlled to do the bidding
Oh, that's
of the
true. They're weak against the warp. I forgot about that.
Necrons they once enslaved.
Right?
The biggest challenge they face now are actually the
Or
upstarts
are they
of the
the
galaxy.
counter
the
to
Eldar
warp?
and the Orcs were quite prominent, and as you can imagine, a galactic war really takes its toll on the joints, or I guess the servos. It was in their best interest to wait out the galactic rise of the other races and come back at a more opportune time. So they went into stasis
Kind of both.
via these
Isn't that
massive
kind of
tomb-
technically why the Tyranids don't attack the tombs or like Necrons in general? Because the Tyranids have no, there's nothing that they gain from that technically.
complexes hidden beneath various worlds, biding their time until it was once again their opportunity to rule the galaxy. Zarek, the Silent King, as penance
No
for
meat,
his
no
failure
food,
to
no
his
biomass.
people, exiled himself into the darkness between stars for the next 60 million years, with his perfect memory a constant reminder of the doom he inflicted upon his people. Flash forward to the
Sag.
modern day, and the Necrons are reawakening, but it isn't working as well as it could be. Whether the tomb world is reawakened naturally or by some imperial moron stepping on a green glowing rock, the Necrons have come back to reclaim a galaxy they consider rightly theirs.
Uh-oh.
But 60 million years of hypersleep have taken their toll. Many Necron dynasties awake with systems unrestored and huge swaths of their population's minds completely lost. Necron nobles wake with various mental faculties compromised, sometimes exhibiting traits similar to excessive paranoia, schizophrenia, or even dementia. One notable Necron, Nemesaur Zandrek, believes that
Nemesaur.
he is still back on his home planet fighting off separatists and interlopers. See Oberyn, the separatists
Interloper.
come, attempting to outflank me as they did at the 4th Battle of Vindach. How they calculate that daubing themselves green and roaring like savages will produce a different outcome, I cannot fathom. But it is of no account. Ready, my legions. Another glorious victory shall soon be ours. Other individuals, such as the esteemed Imhotep the Stormlord, seek to usurp the newly returned Silent King for rightful ruler over the Necron race, believing his time has come to an end, while scientists and archaeologists like Trazen the Infinite and Orikin the Diviner spend
Necrons
thousands of years
kind of
bickering
neutral
over artifacts and petty squabbles.
in terms of
Truly,
good
the
and
Necrons
bad?
are a faction of unthinkable, unimaginable power, held back entirely by their own hubris
so
and
like
60
are they
million
bad?
years of stasis. It is a species that does not
They're
know
evil
of
as
time,
fuck.
only of the ravages brought by it. A pharaoh of a dynasty may just be as frightened to awake completely mad as they are to be assassinated while they sleep.
If
Thousands of years
cool,
pass in
why
an instant.
bad?
There is a play, like an opera play, a retelling of the war in heaven in the Necron
Except for
culture.
Gigachatras in the Infinite, my goat, my Oshi, my entire being, the biggest collector. OMG, I hope he puts me in his museum as his kitten Yuzu because he's so demure and good. Naya Tilda.
That takes
You're-
40 years to witness, because why leave? You have no need to eat or vacate your bowels. You are immortal, but you are soulless. Despite the Necrons' incredible technology, their mastery over time, reality itself, despite all of this, they still are missing a soul. And therein lies the biggest struggle. Most Necrons look to conquest
What's
the galaxy.
wrong with not having
kill
a
the
soul?
interlopers like the humans, Eldar, and Orcs that scrape at a fraction of their power. But the end goal for many,
They
including
seem still
Zarek himself,
sentient.
is to return the souls to their bodies, to undo the horrible fate he cast upon them. This is not the interest of all. Many simply
don't
wish
wanna
to
be
rule
immortal anymore?
their dynasty with an iron fist and kill all they consider unworthy. But to many others, it is to undo the decision that doomed them all. Before they can do that, there is a pest that needs exterminating. That is the fundamental
Tyranids?
understanding of the Necrons. They are so hyper advanced that their science borders on magic. They play with the
Oh.
fundamental aspects of reality and time. Their
Yeah,
mastery
don't
of
they literally have technology that nullifies warp or nullifies psychic stuff?
The physical galaxy is the strongest in the universe. Their weapons reduce people to the barest molecules, and they have devices capable of causing stars to supernova. They are unfathomably difficult to kill, as if you fell one of their number, the living metal remix.
They better not wake up then. If they wake up, we're fucking cooked.
And the reanimation protocols allow it to come back alive once again. They're masters of teleportation, and often killing a Necron fully will just have its consciousness translocated back to their tomb world to await reassembly. Normally, they utilize large phalanxes of warriors and honorary
What if you just
combats,
EMP them?
but some of them have fallen to various mind viruses. The destroyer
it's easy.
cults
Just EMP them.
are hell-bent on killing anything and everyone that lives with an overwhelming force. And then there's the flayed ones. Necrons cursed with I have no mouth and I must scream, a panic attack virus, as the last laugh of Landogo, the Flayer Catan. Slowly losing their minds, they strip apart their foes and adorn their bodies with the skin of their enemies, trying to better return to their old feelings
Aren't
of
Flayers
flesh
also
and blood. The Necrons are a degraded
against
version
Necrons?
of their mighty empire, and still one of the biggest threats in the galaxy. The only thing keeping them at bay currently is their awakening sickness and their infighting with no care to the timeline. But they are coming.
Yeah, they're like zombies, kind of.
They plan to rid this galaxy of the vermin that inhabit it. My people shackled the stars and broke mortality when the species you sprang from had barely left the slime pools it spawned in. Our wars burned reality, and the dominion of our kings is without limit. The ground you tread on is not yours, it is ours. The war
Bitch, you guys were gone for 6 million years and you're trying to reclaim the land, bitch. Like, y'all left so long time ago.
It was a catastrophic time for the galaxy, and as stated in the above quote, burned reality. Of course, souls exist in Warhammer, and in the case of the Necrons here, they were consumed by the star gods. This begs the question, however, if you were to pass on, expire, as one might put it, where would your soul go? The answer to this is the warp. In Warhammer, a soul is real, and so is hell. The afterlife, the Empyrean, the Sea of Souls, the Immaterium. All of these names refer to the dimension parallel to our own, known as the warp. Now, the warp is not like our reality. It does not follow the classic normalcy of time and space. It is defined as the Sea of Souls, and it acts like this in a more literal way than you can realize. To imagine the
Can't you
warp
still
is to
be
imagine
fucked
the
up
sea
if
itself.
your soul
Hell
went
is
to the
real,
warp?
and you can surf on it. It has a current. And
I
can
thought you're
become
not
more
safe
dangerous
either way.
depending on where you go and how bad the weather is. As the Immaterium is a reflection of our reality and of our souls, all thoughts, all emotions, all feeling that goes with a soul is passed on into the warp. If an entire planet decides it's going to engage in a blood-fueled rampage of murder and gore, then the warp around that planet will be affected in a similar manner. It's not something that you can see. It is a parallel, not perpendicular dimension. But it is changing. To expose oneself to the warp for any period of time invites certain death outside of the most iron-willed of individuals, and to stare into it will drive one mad. Much like the open seas,
I can handle it.
Dwell in the warp. Whether these beings were always there and were just emboldened by the carnage of the galaxy, we can only speculate at. At a time, you could say it was more calm.
Honestly, I'd be like the best psyker, honestly.
In heaven didn't do it any favors. Now the warp is turbulent, and its realms belong to a pantheon of gods known simply as
Chaos.
The forces of chaos are beings that serve directly under their patron deity. There are 4 current gods of chaos at the moment: Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh. Each of them represent various facets of
I kind of like Nurgle, if I'm not like being honest. Like Nurgle, he doesn't seem too bad. Like Nurgle kind of seems like kind of goated.
Sentient species and play a great game against one another for total control over their realms. Interestingly enough, while their disciples have physical forms we can understand, the Chaos Gods do not have a physical visual that you can perceive in reality. So while there are tons of fantastic fan art, we do not know what they truly look like. though they are conveniently color-coded.
Wow.
Khorne is the god of blood and murder, carnage and slaughter.
Yeah, I don't like
He is the
Khorne.
one who is most
Fuck
powered by the
Khorne.
wholesale killing of any living thing. For Khorne cares not from where the blood flows. With a sacred number of 8, he is the lord of all things involving killing and blood and gore. The champions are extremely strong.
I don't
as
trust
well,
you
with
if you're a Khorne
monumental
lover.
muscles and extremely large weapons. A true analog to Khorne would be his greater demon, the Bloodthirster, an enormous muscle-bound flying devil with an axe so large it splits tanks in a single swing. They move into battle with armor of brass adorned by the skulls of their foes and pools of freshly spilt blood. This may
Tzeentch
appear
is
to
pretty
be
cool.
quite
I like
frightening, of
Tzeentch.
course, demonic, one might say. But in the world of chaos, all emotions feed one of these gods in one way or another. If you were to define Khorne with single words, you would use blood, carnage, murder, skulls. But you'd be missing out on important ones like strength, honor, prowess, courage, and skill. Khorne is not just about the wholesale slaughter of people. He is about the honor and power of martial combat. The true strength there is in besting
Wait, why
someone
he kinda
in
spits
physical
facts
strength
like
and
that?
skill. Of course, a murderer would be someone who would feed Khorne, but a soldier could feed Khorne. A martial artist or professional fighter could feed Khorne. A warrior, good or bad, feeds.
Wait, so if you don't even worship Khorne, but you're like in martial, like if you just are like like if you're a space marine and you're like fighting, that inherently feeds Khorne. That's OP. That's fucking OP in a world like Warhammer. What the hell?
Khorne. A diplomat does not. A premier soldier does. A GoFundMe does not. This is what leads many mortals down the path of Khorne, for he will bless those that bring him enough
So
skulls.
does Tyranids feed Khorne too? Because like they're constantly eating things. No? Why is that any different though if that's technically blood being spilled? You need a willing emotion than just being a bug.
A world this
you don't have
destructive,
emotions.
there are many ways to reap a high tally for him. Prepare the dread claws and unchain the mad ones. Glorious battle awaits us today, for the world below has refused to surrender. Let us descend upon them with fury and rage, giving no quarter and sparing only those warriors who fight well enough to earn a place amongst us.
That's kind
As
of
to the
cool.
rest, their lives and possessions are ours, but their skulls are for Khorne. Normally, if I ever want to explain Khorne, I just kind of show them this clip.
I'd never stab you in the back, Shepard. Warriors like you and me, straight to the face.
Moving on, Tzeentch is the second god, the god of trickery and mischief, the changer of ways, the great conspirator and the architect of fate. With a sacred number of 9, Tzeentch is truly the god of change in all of its forms, but there is an obvious undercurrent of mischief and cunning. Tzeentch is such a liar that his pants have gone thermonuclear.
What the?
His favorite pastime is asking questions that have no answers while simultaneously making up answers on the spot to a question he didn't ask.
Have you ever had a dream that you could do
It does not me. No.
You want him to do you so much you could do anything?
He is such a conniving little bastard that every emotion of lying, of scheming, of trickery is a direct way to help feed him. An unfaithful partner, a politician, a spy. All these people feed Tzeentch in one way or another, and it doesn't matter if the intentions are good. Acceptance does not feed Tzeentch. Change does. Tzeentch doesn't care
but everything
about your
changes.
facts. He only wants opinions. Because he represents change, he also represents hope, though. Schemes are not always bad, and even the hope to make a better tomorrow is the change he seeks. Because he is the architect of fate and the mastery of sorcery, his presence is purely unknowable. Every depiction of a Tzeentchian demon contains more eyes than are necessary. And
Are all of these gods in equal power to each other, or is there one that's just inherently stronger because there's more of that specific emotion in the world? Because I would think, like, for Khorne at least, it seems like that would be the one that had the most stuff feeding him. There's so much war in Warhammer.
more mouths than I know what to do with. It is a biblically accurate angel if the angel gaslit you into thinking birds are government drones. But are they? The creatures at his disposal adorn themselves with the knowledge of sorceries and the unknown, all to provide a mind-crushing experience. Fighting demons from outside of our reality is difficult enough, but fighting demons from unreality, purposely attempting to trick you, is a whole new thing entirely. And that is before we even get started on the gigantic bird of sorcery you're going to need to face. Do not ask which creature screams in the night. Do not question who waits for you in the shadow.
Comes back to
It is my cry that wakes you in the night, and my body that crouches in the shadow. I am Tzeentch, and you are the puppet that dances to my tune. Third of the Chaos Gods is the one of acceptance of rot and pestilence, the grandfather himself, Papa Nurgle. Nurgle is the exact opposite of Tzeentch. Where Tzeentch believes in change and hope for a future, Nurgle believes in stagnation and the end of everything. At one point or another, we will all decay. We will all rot, and we will all end. And with a sacred number of 7, every single thing, pestilence, boil, and everything in between, comes under the great shadow and girth of Nurgle himself. For Nurgle, the plight of mortals is his fear and wine. And no matter how solid life might be, everything will decay in the end. In the creation of life, there must be an end to that life. And nobody has more creations to end lives than Grandfather Nurgle himself. Every boil, every blemish, every pus-filled wound and disease, every rot and every plague is kept and concocted by Nurgle. This, humorously, keeps Nurgle as a jovial god. He is full of life and laughter, and by creating as many diseases as he possibly
He's just a happy guy.
He shares that joy with mortals. I mean, his envoy is the great unclean one. And look at how happy he is. And there's a lot of him to love. A fear of death in general is feeding Nurgle. All disease makes him stronger, but to pray for salvation for a wounded loved one is to feed Nurgle. The timeless and inevitable fear that one day you will rot and decay is what gives him strength. The Peloton won't feed Nurgle. Licking the doorknob on a public bathroom certainly does. However, should you embrace your grandfather's gifts, you may find an end to your pain. Maybe. All mortal followers of the Chaos Gods.
What about like the 5-second rule? If you get the food off the ground before 5 seconds, does that not feed Nurgle, or does it still feed Nurgle?
Themselves there in one way or another, either through the direct worship or the slow corrupting of their souls.
It does feed him.
But those that take Nurgle's gifts and embrace the decay of their bodies may end up being chosen among his few as a faithful servant. In doing so, you will be free of the pain caused by Nurgle's
like he's just making his little pot, his little soup
jovial and happy as he is.
His babies.
Maybe. His enemies shall wither and die. His allies shall wither and die. The universe and all within it shall wither and die. And when the great corruption has settled over the land and permeated the very foundations of
I feel like I'm in church for Warhammer.
Then shall the Lord of all rise from the rot and ruin, spread his arms wide to reclaim
One thing to
all
keep
of his
in mind with Nurgle that Bricky
children.
doesn't mention is that Nurgle is a god of life too. It's
Wait,
just
really?
that there's trillions more bacteria than there are people, and he loves them as much as you.
Those were the 3 major Chaos Gods for a very long time. emboldened by war and death on a galactic scale. Ever present, but now fact on the suffering of a galaxy.
So if you really think about it, Nurgle's probably like the least of your concerns. Like he's probably like the one that you wouldn't really be scared of.
For a while, was able to elude the pull of chaos, an advanced race of psychically attuned aliens whose master over the physical world was so strong that chaos could not glean from them the morsels of power they once had, or so they couldn't, not for a long while. 60 million years ago, in an attempt to combat the Necrons in Votann, the Old Ones made a new species. One with innate power in the warp and the ability to harness it with a mastery that was unseen by so many others. A mastery so powerful, the Necrons retreated to sleep in order to wait it out. It was no longer a galaxy to be ruled by them, but instead begin the age of the...
Wait, so the Old Ones made the Necron tier and Eldars?
The Eldar are a race of pointed-eared humanoids that are all psychically attuned to the warp. If we're being meta here, these are space elves, and these elves ruled the galaxy in the time the Necrons went to sleep and humanity began to rise.
Not the
Eldars Empire
Podcast Bricky's just did an excellent episode on Nurgle that explored a lot of the positive sides.
Lasted for longer than any other galactic power that we know of. Their understanding of all things was exceptional. With every single one of them being psychers, they had the ability to master the warp and use it to
I want to be a
advantage.
knife ear.
Being a psyker is basically like being a wizard, or I guess in this case it's more of a sorcerer, since you are born with the gifts as opposed to learning them. In order to utilize your psychic abilities, however, you must then reach into the other dimension,
Eldars are
into
cool.
the warp, into hell for that power. So if you were to say, cast Fireball, your mind would reach into the warp, gather the strength to rewrite reality, to then cast Fireball. Now, you might think to yourself, doesn't that mean if you are opening up a power to the warp, you may create a lot of risk to yourself because of all the horrible things we just talked about in the warp? Yes. However, in Warhammer 40k, willpower is a real, tangible thing, in the sense that in its own right, it can be weaponized. Being strong of will means being strong of soul, and being strong of soul means you can resist the pull of the warp that much more. A more inexperienced psyker opens up a hole into the warp that is large, and that hole widens to get more power, allowing evil things to get in. A powerful psyker is able to open a very small hole, but with immense force, to get the same amount of power with less risk. The Eldar are master psychers. Every single one of them can call upon the warp, and over millions of years they have perfected it so much so that they can
use you as a psycher, instant triggers a peril of the warp and wipes the party. I accidentally open a portal and then fucking armies of demons come out and wipe all of us.
Out of it. In some species in the galaxy, they utilize the warp itself for interstellar travel. The Eldar
ain't
having any of that noise. How about we utilize a fancy alternative mode of travel that is substantially safer than the old ones created, called the Webway? What about dying? Miss me with that. We no longer age. And if we do,
Slaanesh,
we just be
Eldars,
reborn like that. Food, water, materials, we make things out of distilled warp essence itself. We sing unreality into cathedrals
Dark
to dine.
Eldar.
What truly could the Eldar Empire possibly fear?
What is that?
The Eldar Empire's biggest fear was themselves. With a society so perfect, they wanted for naught, and this led them down dark and dangerous paths. When the base functions of society are no longer a problem for you, you tend to experiment. Perhaps the medium rare steak on your plate would be better if it was elf meat. Hey, I'm not saying we should make cannibalism legal, but like, what's the issue with a little taste? Violent sports is one thing, but how come we don't do sports to the death? I mean, I'm just saying.
Why
like,
is cannibalism considered bad?
And clear about it. Like, what really is the problem there? You know, art, is in the eye of the viewer, and what is considered art is completely up to the concept of one's own interest. A canvas.
Like, genuine question. Like, not killing someone to eat them, but like what if someone died and like that was your only option? Would you still be considered bad if you ate them? I've heard of prions.
Adorned with the blood of a man wronged is truly the visual poetry that our society needs. Hedonism. With a slow and consistent hedonism, the Eldar slid backwards into debauchery of the sort I cannot discuss on this YouTube video. Murder on stage, delicacies and drugs distilled from one another, the trade of slaves and concubines, and much worse.
Lots
the
of
Eldar
sex.
physiology has their emotions heightened, and they can feel more than a human does. So while it can provide lows of pure despair, it can also provide greater highs than you have ever known. And swinging between the two of them was the Eldar game. The Warp took notice of this heavily. And it began to react. On a galactic scale, the debauchery and the hedonism of the Eldar race caused levels of warp storm so pronounced and so volatile that it cut off interstellar travel for all those who used it. Communications between planets was removed, and a nightmarish era of Old Night began. This continued for thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years. The Eldar all but removed from the problems being caused as they entered heights of more and more ecstasy. They needed more.
Wait, I thought that the Emperor had like his own system of like teleporting through, or like his own system of allowing others to go through the warp or something like that. I thought there was
and more. Nothing was ever enough. More murder, more torture. It's art.
It's later.
It's life. This silence offends Slaanesh. Slaanesh. Wait. Slaanesh, the Prince of Pleasure, she who thirsts, the god of unspeakable excess, is our fourth Chaos God with the sacred number of 6 adorning their title. Slaanesh is a bit of a tricky one, because with our other 3 Chaos Gods, there was a certain understanding of human emotions and desires, but for Slaanesh, that desire is
her fucking tit
the words to be used
sucking the smoke out of a hookah right now? Is that her fucking tit smoking?
Desire is how they get their power. The words to be used would be decadence, pleasure, perfection, passion.
Whoa, that demon has one boobie and one not boobie.
Excess and many others. The pursuit of more. The want to do more, experience more, become more. That's what gives Slaanesh their gifts. A lot of people believe that Slaanesh is something that originates with sex, specifically, and it makes sense why they assume that. The visuals of Slaanesh patrons are all very lithe and sexual, but
they have
are
crab
also
features because they all have crabs.
Attractive to a variety of intrigues. However, to think that Slaanesh specifically derives from sex would be mistaken. While it is true that a lot of humanity's actions can relate to getting laid, and Slaanesh is the dark prince of desire, it's more on the lines of feeling an excess of an emotion. It is excessive touch and scent and desire, and a lot of that has to do with sex. That's why it looks like sex, but it's more than just that. A patron of the arts may feed Slaanesh, one that aspires to become the perfect chef or master of their craft, and the sheer pursuit
like passion
of that
for your
alone
hobby
will feed Slaanesh. Whiplash is Slaanesh's absolute favorite.
Wait, am I feeding Slaanesh right now by being passionate about my VTubing?
Videos where people beat Elden Ring on a dance pad feed Slaanesh.
I do challenge runs on Dark Souls. That means I'm feeding Slaanesh. Oh, we're cooked. We're cooked.
There are no two words in the English language more harmful than good job.
But is there a line?
No, man, no.
This also moves into the concept of feeling. Sensation is a majorly Slaanesh-coded thing. It might start off feeling good, but then you get to play around a little bit, you know? You play with a little bit of pain. Light pain might not be enough, so you might want more. Or inflicting the pain could be your jam. Music can increase to volumes that may hurt your ears, and even then that might not be enough. More. You must have more. Many of the disciples of Slaanesh carry a demonic form in their lithe grace. The Keeper of Secrets is his chosen envoy, and their movements are a blur of dance and pain with an aura all the more fatal. They dance and sing, but there's always a form of malice behind every action they take. An alluring gaze that will pull you in right before the demonic entity can crush you in that grip. Slaanesh's palace has 6 layers surrounding it, and one of them is the excess of gluttony, where the participant finds themselves in a beautiful banquet full of the most delicious foods imaginable. Tables of delicacies and rivers of wine tempt the user to such a degree that they cannot stop stuffing their face, unaware that the things they are eating are very vaguely familiar meat. If one does not see themselves drowning in the river of wine, they may soon fill their bodies up so much that they cease to function and fall
What does that say?
becoming part of the banquet themselves.
Tags feederism?
One of these 6 layers of Slaanesh's palace. This was the ecstasy that the Eldar civilization indulged in for millennia.
What's
and
a
did
feeder?
so at a monumental scale that they created a god from it. Find
Yuzu, you used to be my Oshi, but now that I know you're in league with Slaanesh, I just can't be around that type of heresy. I kid.
Well, you guys are
You're
feeding.
still my Oshi.
You guys are feeding into Slaanesh too by consuming content from me because you like consuming content from me. So therefore, you're feeding Slaanesh by doing that. So you're also in cahoots with Slaanesh.
pleasure in every moment, indulge in every whim. Let lesser races feel the burden of their crude lives. We are beyond such concerns or worries. Every power is ours to use, every sensation ours to experience.
What if we're all hate watchers? Checkmate.
Masters of the galaxy, and all others exist only
Checkmate,
to satisfy
Lib.
our curiosities. We have earned our position of power. Let us forever taste the fruits of such achievement. Time itself is ours to command. We are eternal.
Come, Satan? What?
With the birth of Slaanesh, the Eldar Empire ceased to be. A catastrophic event so horrible that the warp ripped a hole permanently in our
Wait, every time Numi reads Yuri at 3 a.m., she's literally worshipping Slaanesh. Every time I read my Yaoi, I'm worshipping Slaanesh.
reality, a fissure forever known as the Eye of Terror. With the sudden inhalation of this god's largest breath, the Eldari souls are a currency to be now collected by she who thirsts. Trillions of Eldar died in an instant.
What?
Slaanesh gorging
Trillions?
on their souls to satisfy his palate. 99.9% of their entire species died.
What?
And the rest are doomed to a fate worse than death. For Slaanesh now stakes a claim on each and every Eldar soul. From the moment they pass on, an eternity of torment awaits them. The remaining Eldar devote their entire lives to stopping this eventuality. Their dying race so devoted to saving themselves from the Dark Prince.
So are
And
they kind of
in
good
doing so,
that way then?
have found very creative ways. In the modern world of Warhammer, the Craftworld Eldar are the main force of Eldar in the galaxy and represent the elf style that many think of when you think elves in space. Fantasy elves in space, not those elves. We'll get to them. A craft world is a monumentally large starship,
Wow.
the size of a continent, that acts as a form of flotilla. During the highest reaches of hedonism, many Eldar saw the demonic writing
I
on
would
the
be
wall
an
and began
Eldar,
to
I'm
try
not
and
even
seek
gonna
asylum
lie.
from their own debauchery. Those Eldar left
I
on
love
monumental
elves.
craft worlds into the far reaches of the galaxy and saved themselves from Slaanesh's awakening. The main thing the Craftworld Eldar seek is to temper their minds and bodies in a way that will never allow them
'cause
to
they
slide
always
back
have
into
an
their old
innate
ways. The
affinity
representation they
to
carry is
magic.
that of a more feudal Japanese motif. Eldar follow paths as they age, the path of the warrior, the seer, the poet, the diplomat, the bone singer, and so on. These paths
Bone
are a strict
singer.
code of conduct to hone the heightened Eldar psychology down a school of thought and action. And if it sounds a hell of a lot like Bushido, well, you're damn right. Here's a medal and a soul stone. Don't lose it or an eternity of torment awaits you.
Oh,
Going
hell
through
no.
these
I already
paths will
lost
allow
it.
you to take up not just a role in Eldar society, but keep your mind clear from the past worries that plagued them. Every Eldar is said to be a psyker, however, very few of them actually utilize their psychic powers
What?
for fear of tempting she who thirsts. A large amount of emphasis is
Oh.
also put on ancestors of the Eldar and learning from them the farther you go down a path. This can sometimes be seen by the large variety of jewels adoring the armor of Eldar. Those are called soul stones, the biggest middle
Soul
finger to
stone.
Slaanesh they can think of. See, when an Eldar dies, these stones act as a backup, and instead of their souls going to Slaanesh, they are then trapped and stored in this little stone. So when the
that's
Eldar say they
smart.
commune with their ancestors, they mean so very literally, as the spirit and soul of generations before them are stored here.
Oh,
Often
that's
larger
smart.
structures may contain vast amounts of soul stones, such as the Infinity Circle.
They're literally save scummers. Oh my god.
In the
They're my
craft world
people.
itself, allowing the souls of the dead to help power their enormous starship. The young do not desire the discipline of the path, but rather their curiosity drives them to try every fruit from the tree. Thus, it is that so many take the path of wandering or the path of damnation in their first years of adulthood. And so, the great tragedy of our kind is played out again and again as the number of our people shrink from generation to generation.
No.
These paths, when completed, allow an Eldar to move to the next one, then
Ooh.
the next one.
Who's
However,
that?
since this is the grim darkness of the world, many of these paths rely on combat. The Eldar actually had gods at one point. Cain, Vol, Isha, Azaryan, and so
Why
on.
did he look
These
at the
gods,
Why did he
Vol,
look at the
Isha,
jar? Why is he looking at it like that? What?
Azaryan, and so on. These gods are aspects
She's
of
in the
Eldar
jar.
Pantheon, and while many were killed in Slaanesh's creation, their teachings live on. For some, the strongest devotion to the Eldar
Nurgle
gods
has
is
her
to
in a
join the
jar?
Aspect Warriors
Oh,
and
shit.
embody the wrath of Cain, their god of war. While guardians of the Eldar craft worlds are more akin to a trained militia,
I
the
wonder
Aspect
what he
Warriors
does
embody a
with the
particular
jar.
variant of the path. Each are led by a Phoenix Lord, a name passed down from generations and embodying the souls of prior Phoenix Lords with each new one. The Howling Banshees, led by Jane Czar, Fugin and his Fire Dragons, Baharoth and his Swooping Hawks, or
Baharoth.
Malgan Ra and his Dark Reapers. Each aspect shrine carries with it the Eldar way of war. Fast, hard-hitting, and incredibly tricksy, for they do not have the numbers to fight in any other way. The Craftworld Eldar show how mangled an empire can be by their own actions. They once ruled the galaxy.
Well, it wasn't
in
the
an honest,
Eldar that did it, right?
non-hyperbolic
Wasn't
way,
it
but
like
in the end,
the Dark
they were
Eldar that
bested
did it?
by themselves, and their most prominent remnants are forced to drift aimlessly through the galaxy, trying to save their species from extinction and resist
Oh, they're the same.
temptations of she who thirsts. But for some, the party, it's just beginning.
Uh-oh.
Deep
Drukhari.
within the webway is the city of Kamara. This dark city once existed as a port in the webway that allowed for ease of transport for the Eldar between its various domains. The significance of this city meant that it needed to be a bit more of a neutral territory outside of the jurisdiction of general Eldar law, and therefore it was allowed to self-govern. This did not go well. The Dark City became the hideaway for all manner of sin. The Eldar race slipped into debauchery on a galactic scale.
What does debauchery mean again?
And this was the city you went to when that wasn't enough for you. The convenience of being so deep within the webway was that it exists as a blind spot to the horrors of the warp.
Depraved
So while the rest of
degen.
the Eldar fled the downfall of their species,
Epic
Kamara
levels of
kept
horny.
partying. When Slaanesh was birthed, they were saved the worst of it, thanks to them being nice and neatly tucked away inside the webway.
What?
But only somewhat. The Dark Prince did not have a grip around their soul, but the tiniest pinky finger, and they were still pulling. But due to their excess hedonism, they found a solution to this problem. If they tormented others, they could temporarily rejuvenate their souls and continue to cheat their inevitable death by placating the prince.
Wait, so these ones were like the direct cause of Slaanesh being born, but like they're the ones that not being punished for it? Did I get that right? No, yes, but no. No. They're the ones who said this is still a good idea. Let's keep going. Oh.
Of pleasure. And if they kept this up on the regular, they could effectively become immortal. Thus, the Drukhari were born. Unlike the more stoic elves you see in works of fiction, the Drukhari themselves exist as a sort of analog of the more grim and fiendish elves you find in Norse and European mythology. The Drukhari are soul vampires, but the more basic means to feed are hardly enough to keep them going. This desire to feed is known as the thirst, and to quench it effectively, they have mastered the art of biotechnology and dark sciences to really juice
Doesn't blood
themselves up on
angels
the crispy
suffer
soul
from
sprite
the
from the
thirst?
vending machine called the Galaxy. The majority of Drukhari act as pirates and raiders and slavers. They go into our physical reality and drag people back to Kamara to commit atrocities that go beyond any imaginative torture a human can think of. The Drukhari are organized in various groups throughout the Dark City to accomplish this in a more organized and extremely brutal way. The Cabals act as the main warriors of the city, led by their archons. Witches and succubi act as entertainment for Kamara in gladiatorial arenas, and the flesh-crafting homunculus keep the Drukhari alive and discover ever increasingly more painful ways to torment their ever increasingly large supply of slaves they are brought. The Dark Eldar.
What if the most perfect girl you've ever met in your life was a Drukhari? Would you still pursue her?
Of the galaxy as little more than cattle, livestock that can be brought to bay or slaughtered at any time. Their fodder, however, is not meat and muscle, but the anguish and
she's
despair
torturing
of the
you.
weak. The Dark Eldar do indeed drink blood, but also tears.
She's a 10, but
and
she's a
most sustaining
Drukhari.
of all, the raw essence of pain they wring out of their captives. The truth of the matter is that Drukhari sustain themselves on the suffering of others, not just morally, but physically. Kamara is a city rife with backstabbing schemes and murder. It is the worst back alleys of the worst ghettos at the best of times. Nothing is more horrifying to a Drukhari than death, for death will see them in the talons of Slaanesh for an eternity of torment. So they do everything they can to stop this. The homunculi covens regrow dead members from pieces of flesh as bargaining chips.
What?
The succubi create grisly gladiatorial spectacles that literally rejuvenate the audience members as captives are murdered for sport. To be captured by the Drukhari is one of, if not the worst fate imaginable in the world of Warhammer 40k.
War.
In a universe built on
For a
war
dommy
crimes,
mommy?
they are the most debased war crimers of all time. To be tortured and sacrificed in the gladiatorial arenas is a blessing, for you have escaped the fate of being in the Fleshsmiths control group, or being turned into a living and breathing piece of furniture for an Archon's
Holy.
quarters. In a cruel twist of fate, a newly born Drukhari does not arrive into this world loving torture. It is something they must grow to love. Grow to appreciate the suffering of other beings in order to survive in the world they have been brought into.
They have to be taught to do that.
If you told
That's
your
so fucked
Drukhari
up.
girlfriend you wanted to be her seat, she'd turn you into a living piece of flesh furniture for her that forces your toenails to be dragged across the ground. Still worth though.
If they succeed, they become some of the worst monsters in the known galaxy. A dark reflection to the Craftworlders and a taste of what Eldar society was like before the fall. If they do not succeed, they must find purchase elsewhere. Often those will join
turn into a
smaller
rose
parts of Eldar society like the Exilites or the Harlequins.
turn into her
Exilites
rose
believe in a
toy?
pre-industrial variant of their
What
society, often
the-
retreating to more lush worlds to ride dinosaurs and live off the land. Prehistoric style that I would normally laugh at if they
I
weren't
find the most perfect
riding
man. Let me be his,
dinosaurs like
his
ballers.
personal
The Harlequin
flashlight.
dancing troupe are a subsect of Eldar that are more than just a little strange. A carnival of dancing jesters that serve the Eldar laughing god of Kegarak. They arrive never when expected and leave just as quickly. Blurs of light carry their footsteps as they dance their foes into a grave. Combat is just as much of a joke as it is a play on bloody murder. They travel and aid many other Eldar and sometimes
look
even
cool.
humanity for reasons we can never understand.
What?
Perhaps one day we would have, were they not stripped of their army book and folded into the Eldari Codex. So I suppose it'll have to stay a mystery, or maybe it was one of Kegarak's master plans to get back at She Who Thirsts and save their species. Who could
Copium.
know? Perhaps it was all a sick and practical joke to Kegarak, and he would just find it very funny to watch me fumble
Kodiak,
the
think of
discussion
it 2
of one
months.
human on a tiny blue planet across the galaxy. Oh, speaking of,
The Imperium of Man.
before the fall of the Eldar, Earth, or Terra as it's called, was in ruin. One man who looks to put the pieces back together. Where did he come from? We don't know. Some say he was the result of early shamans. Some say he is
Oh.
the final old one who escaped their species genocide. And those that are smartest know the answer is, it doesn't matter. He revealed himself as the Emperor of Mankind.
He just
and was
claimed that
tasked with
title?
The most monumental upheaval of humanity possible. The Eldari's warp fluctuations had turned the golden
He just
age of humanity
self-proclaimed.
into old night. Interstellar travel cut off? Check. An AI uprising? Check. Brand new psychers popping up and not knowing how to handle their powers? Oh, check. Demonic incursions? Check. Thousands of years this occurred, and now the Emperor of Mankind showed himself to put the pieces back together. Unifying Terra under his rule, the Emperor founded the Imperium of Man and ruled it with an iron fist. He was the supreme leader and nothing could
Jesus.
stand against him.
He's
He wished to
not even a
remove
human. This guy's a
mankind from the
god.
yoke of its former failures, and he knew he would be the best leader they could have because he was right. AI banned, religion banned. You did as the Emperor told you, or his Thunder Warriors would put you in your place. That place often being a grave. Now, Terra was thriving, but humanity needed to reclaim its long-lost brethren scattered across the stars. But to do so, he needed those that could build him a fleet truly meant for the reconquering of the galaxy. And so he turned his attention to the red planet of Mars.
The Mechanicus people. The Adeptus Mechanicus. I love
Mars
them.
and Terra were
I love them
close
so
allies
much.
long before the Unification Wars. Mars was the first world terraformed by humanity and became what would ultimately be
The
first
toaster
hive
fuckers?
world, an epicenter for industry and technology. The Age of Strife did not
They're
treat
like-
the
they're
red
so
planet kindly,
cute.
however. Mars was cut off from Terra during this time, and the warp storms that ravaged the planet turned it into an absolute nuclear hellscape. Those who were on the surface were turned into your run-of-the-mill mutant if they even survived the bombings they inflicted on themselves, but others were lucky enough to escape beneath the red sands in powerful fallout shelters. These became their generational habitats, but this resulted in extreme reliance on technology and those who could use it. They began to view the technology keeping them alive less as a technological advancement and more of a divine intervention, with those skilled in it as priests. The Martians began to worship the power
Damn,
of
so
the
all IT bros are Adeptus Mechanicus.
machine. And this
All
resulted in the
engineers.
formation of the cult Mechanicus, the belief in a holy trinity known as the Three-in-One. The machine god, serving as the spirit who gave rise to all technologies known, the motive force, the deity that gives all life its ability to live, and the Omnissiah, a physical manifestation of the machine god itself. This belief began to manifest in them physically as well. What were once humans began to really mess around with the character creator options, and this tech obsession made them view instances of flesh to be weak and spend their lives removing what makes them human and replacing it with mechanical augments. Robotic limbs,
What
glowing
the-
eyes, mechadendrite.
Wait, this is like a philosophical question. If you are a human, right, and you replace all of your body parts with like robot body parts, are you still the same person?
Arms. What was once a mass of flesh now looks like the back of a router, and the oldest members of the Mechanicus no longer even look slightly human. In
Ship
addition
of
to this, cloaked
Theseus.
over all of their mechanical appendages are robes that reflect the color of their homeworld, the red robes of the Mechanicus. The cult Mechanicum, now the Adeptus Mechanicus, create a fascinating combination of cultures all birthed into one. Basically, techno-zealot monks. Organic life is the machine god's
Thank
greatest
you,
accomplishment
Doctor,
within the
for the
scope
tier
of the great
3.
work. All praise
you.
he who is Three-in-One. By giving us life within an organic shell, he presents us with the means and opportunity to improve upon physicality, as is his divine plan. He grants us complex weakness so we might learn metallic strength and ascend to his level of machinic perfection. The Emperor's arrival to Mars was very much a
Name of the
walking in
video?
with the pizzas while the room is on fire moment. But to
Every
the
single
Mechanicum,
Warhammer
they saw
40K
his arrival
faction
as
re-explained.
confirmation of their belief. They took one look at the glowing golden entity that showed up on their doorstep and were like, "That's him. That's the guy right there," and they immediately accepted him as the Omnissiah.
The guy.
Obviously, showing up and being
He's
called
the
Machine
guy.
Jesus shortly after wiping out all instances of non-Machine Jesus a little bit beforehand is an instance of capital H heresy. But the
Timothy.
Emperor saw the bigger picture. Were they strange with how they
Where the hell
rubbed
did he even
unguents
come
on
from?
themselves,
This
burned
guy just
incense,
showed up
and prayed
randomly.
to machines for them to work? Sure, but that's a lot of production right there. So the Emperor devised the Treaty of Olympus Mons, a unifying agreement between Terra
The Olympus
and
Mons
Mars. And this
pubis.
union would be permanently etched into the Aquila of the Imperium as the two-headed eagle. One head for Terra, and the other for Mars. The forces of the Emperor will be supplied with all the technology and weapons they needed to reunite the scattered remnants of humanity under one banner. And the Mechanicum of Mars will be able to keep doing what they were doing religiously and scientifically, so long as they kept up their tithes.
Doesn't the Mechanicus also, like the Mechanicus and the Space Marines, kind of hate each other, but like they work together because the Mechanicus have good weapons or something like that?
This tithe meant total quality control over all technology in the Imperium. Is it a big spaceship? AdMech take care of that. Tanks? AdMech take care of that. The literal bullets in a gun? You guessed it. But unlike the factories
They're
of
just
today,
coworkers.
the forge worlds of Mars and the creations of the Mechanicum are a bit of a different experience altogether. Instead of a factory on a random given world, the entirety of the planet's surface is dedicated to manufacturing. But that's a little tricky, isn't it? Considering that the usage of silica animus, or AI is a big no-no, and basically the largest affront to their divine machine god possible. Fortunately, there's a really neat alternative that they've come up with. That's called
what
a
is
servitor.
this?
Incredible devices that can do anything from manufacturing, maintenance, basic door operation, even just float around like a helpful little drone. It's an extremely easy process too. All you need to do is take a human who is dying or preferably an enemy of the state, most likely that one, and lobotomize them. And then reprogram their brains
it's just
to
that
do
easy.
exactly what they tell you.
Oh, yeah,
They even
yeah.
got
I
little
should have thought of
baby
that.
versions of them. Yay! So now you can rest easy knowing that the entirety of the Imperium, because they outlaw AI and learning new tech is heresy, is run on lobotomized
hate
slaves.
AI,
Whether they
based-
deserve it or not
based
is unimportant,
Mechanicus.
and whether they can still keep their consciousness trapped in their own minds is another thing entirely.
I want to play Darktide now. I bought the game when it first released, but I didn't have anyone to play with, so I never touched it. So it was sitting downloaded on my PC for like
An
months.
excerpt from the servitor creation factories. Naked human beings were standing in a switch-packed line between high fences. The manufactorum produced servitors, but it was more akin to an abattoir than a workshop. Every surface was easily cleanable. Servitors with spray units surgically attached to their backs prowled about, hosing filth from slit drains set into the perfectly smooth, slanted floors. As the line slowly advanced, the people were passed through various scanning devices, most of them mounted in ugly, functional arches that let out a constant series of acceptance chimes. Occasionally, one would let out an angry blare, and the indicator lumens would flash red. The rejected person was then swallowed up by a trapdoor opening beneath their feet. From these pits wafted a hideous stench and the grinding sounds of industrial mincers. One rejected man grabbed onto the lip and hung there, arms and hands bloodied, shouting a stream of defiant profanities. Guards lined the grating either side of him and shocked him until he fell. The adepts wouldn't even waste bullets on these people. The trapdoor flipped up, and the next terrified person was ushered forward. Violent metal arms snatched them up and spread-eagled them in the air, and a servitor shearer shaved them all over. At another, they were subjected to a high-pressure counterseptic wash whose chemical stink made me choke from 100 feet away. More scanners, more rejects
just keeps
winnowed out.
going.
Machines forcibly dressed them in a heavy rubberized garment common to all monotask servitors. These were saggy on them, all one size.
It just keeps
until
going.
another process force-shrank them to fit their bodies, where metal cuffs, sockets, and collars bit into vulnerable flesh. The last few prayers gave way to screams at that point, and even the most stoic shouted in pain. They were ushered over a floor, buzzing with power that made them shriek with every footstep. "What's that for?" I asked. "Follicular inhibitor, to stop their hair from growing," he said. Freaking sweet, Lois. As for their scientific pursuits, the Mechanicum believe in the preservation of knowledge above all and the quest to expand it. However, as opposed to just innovating and inventing on their own with their vast technological know-how, they believe
can they do that to make hair stop growing on my legs and arms and armpits? Can they do that?
A form of tech heresy. You see, because of their religious viewpoints on technology itself, they believe that the instruction booklet itself is just as holy as the Lego set it
It's the whole
builds.
body or
And
nothing.
to innovate on that without the proper written knowledge is to go against the divine word of the machine god itself. All knowledge is already in the universe. You simply need to rediscovering it and attempting to
You just need to search it on
invent
Google.
something to improve upon divinity is very heretical. Prior to the Age of Strife, humanity was able to populate the stars with devices known as standard template constructs, or STCs.
Wait, do Adeptus Mechanicus have like a internal database in their brain
and detail how to create
that they could pull from other
anything
people
a
in the
startup quality would
server?
need? Essentially, they were devices with the entirety of human technological know-how so that you could make a home away from home. The Mechanicum will not make anything without an STC. Quite literally nothing, because this is the knowledge they seek, and that knowledge is divine. One time, scouts of the Imperial Guard found a functioning STC that provided the schematics on a knife that happened to be a bit lighter and a bit sharper than most other knives. These knives were adopted by 30 Space Marine chapters and were one of the most advanced discoveries of the century. This discovery was so significant that they were each awarded a planet for finding this. A planet for a machine that taught them how to make knives. Due to their religious organization, you can probably guess the Mechanicum are organized in a feudal structure with the highest
You just get rewarded with a
the
planet.
priesthood. Cream of the crop being the fabricator general of Mars itself, who serves as a high lord of Terra, but also oversees the entirety of the Mechanicum below. Below them are tech priests that oversee the cult for the quest of knowledge and other more straightforward theocracy. Forge worlds tend to operate slightly more independently, what can cause some power struggles within the Mechanicum, because, you know, despite them all being weird robots, they love being given praise. And despite being the manufacturing end of the Imperium, they do actually have their own military forces. They have the Skitarii private army and all.
Are the Mechanicus really strong military-wise, or are they kind of like soy boys?
Their various 1920s Martian-style mechanisms like doom crawlers, Castellan robots, and of course, the Titan Legions, because nothing is cooler than a robot that towers over buildings. Ultimately, their very dogmatic view on technology as a whole has resulted in any innovation becoming absent, thus causing the Imperium to stagnate as a whole. The lack of ambition to create anything new and the wholesale murder of anyone who even tries leads to things becoming derelict. I grow weary of this flesh I was born into, strangely disgusted by its nature. I crave only the cold, clean certainty of steel and silicon, that I might become one with the blessed machine. I do not expect you to understand, you who cling to your flesh as if it were immortal, seeking only to preserve it, to protect it. One day you will see the folly of your ways, and then no doubt you will come begging to my order to preserve you. After the groundwork had been set unification-wise, it was time to start getting things together for the Emperor's great crusade across the stars to bring humanity under one banner. The Thunder Warriors were a perfect fighting force for unifying Terra and Luna, but
That looks like a Cadian soldier.
Different thing. You see, these warriors weren't soldiers in the eyes of the Emperor. They were tools, extremely blunt tools used for the fast conquest of Terra. As the Emperor was concerned, the tools you use at home aren't the same ones you take on a road trip. So the Emperor rid himself of his tools in the exact manner you think he did, and he went forward to crafting a brand new tool. One more mobile, more efficient, and ready for his next era of conquest. They shall be my finest warriors, these men who give of themselves to me. Like clay, I shall mold them, and in the furnace of war forge them. They will be of iron will and steely muscle. In great armor shall I clad them, and with the mightiest guns will they be armed. They will be untouched by plague or disease. No sickness will blight them. They will have tactics, strategies, and machines so that no foe can best them in battle. They will be my bulwark against the terror. They are the defenders of humanity. They are my soul.
No, he didn't say it.
And they shall know no fear. The vastness of the Milky Way galaxy meant that
he was hyping it up, and he just made he cut it off.
Better to do this than himself. But since the technology to be in many places at once does not exist anymore, the Emperor decided that it was time to become a dad, the same way Geppetto did, and with far less care. It is not my son, Archon. None of them are. They are warlords, generals, tools bred to serve a purpose, just as legions were bred to serve a purpose. What a dad. The Primarch Project was started to create charismatic and unique leaders in the Imperial military. The diversity of these eventual leaders meant that each one could be specialized for certain circumstances across the galaxy. Depending on the type of conflict,
dude,
one
that's
leader
the
might be
Emperor,
better than the
bro.
other. So instead of forcing one leader to acclimate to a situation directly,
so
it would
crazy.
be better to send a specialized leader and force to handle it. In order to do this, the Emperor used his genetic know-how and maybe a little bit of that forbidden.
Wait, this is sanguinous? This is sanguinous? Bro, he might as well be the Emperor. Like, look at that aura. He's fucking mogging everyone next to him.
Would be better to send a specialized leader and force to handle it. In order to do this, the Emperor used his genetic know-how and maybe a little bit of that forbidden stuff to create these genetically perfect gene fathers
a little bit
that
of
had the
forbidden
ability
juice.
to serve as his analog directly, and also serve as the leaders of the respective Space Marine legions. All 18, that's right, all 19 of his sons were meant to be directly molded by the Emperor himself, despite their genetic differences. And they go as follows in order: Lionel Johnson, Fulgrim, Percherabo, Jagatai Khan, Lehman Russ, Rogel Dorn,
Why are they so smooth?
Sanguinius, Ferris Manus, Angron, Robute Gilliman, Mortarion, Magnus the Red,
Magnus,
Horace Lupercal, Lorgar Aurelian, Vulcan, Corvus Corax, and Alfarius and Omegon. His sons, finalized and crafted to be the warriors he needed them to be, were complete. But he may have decided to do a bit of dabbling
I'm a
with things he
Sanguinus
shouldn't have
fangirl.
and
I
paid a
love
price.
Sanguinus.
Before the Primarchs were ready to go, an intervention by the gods of chaos prevented his plan from being completed as intended. Though the sources vary, the ultimate result of the Chaos God intervention was that all of the Emperor's tools were scattered throughout the galaxy at unknown places and times. Each one of his sons ended up in a completely different world, and instead of being able to directly influence their upbringing, these children were instead forced to experience the unique nature of their respective homeworlds. Some had a great time
Look at him.
lived in general
He just looks like someone you just want to follow for the rest of your life.
Others, not so much. Despite his closest advisor, Malkador the Sigillite, saying, "All right, Chief, let's try this one again," the Emperor sensed each of his sons were still very much alive, and one of the primary objectives of the Great Crusade shifted to reclaiming each of his sons so they could take command of their specific Space Marine legions and carry out his will. These original Space Marine legions that were created alongside
He looks like he lays pipe politely.
In order,
No.
the Dark Angels, Emperor's Children,
I'll be the
Iron
judge of
Warriors,
that.
White Scars, Space Wolves, Imperial Fists, Night Lords, Blood Angels, Iron Hands, World Eaters, Ultramarines, Death Guard, whoosh, Thousand Sons, Luna Wolves, eventually
I do like the
Sons of
Thousand
Horus,
Sons.
the Word Bearers, Salamanders, Raven Guard,
Salamanders
and
are
the Alpha
cool. I like
Space Marines,
salamanders.
unlike their gene fathers, the Primarchs are not made in a vat. There is a process to recruit more members from humanity itself.
I like the Blood Angels, the Salamanders, the Thousand Sons. That's the ones that I like.
Seems a bit strange considering how massive a Space Marine is compared to a normal man, but don't forget, the Emperor is really good with genetics. Less good with anesthetic, however. These prospects are recruited across humanity from various reasons and methods, and are generally killed during that process. But sometimes they aren't, and they are able to go through more and more of the actual training to assess certain traits that are important and relevant to being a Space Marine. Most of the time, the common factor is a pure, unrelenting willingness to kill the enemies of the Imperium. After going through psychological screening, the prospect, now called a neophyte, goes under the knife to become a Space Marine.
Under the knife. They
here
get
is a quick list of
BBLs.
all the cool
They
new
get
stuff
mandatory Emperor BBLs.
Genuinely shoved into their bodies. A secondary heart, an organ that makes your bones grow, an organ that makes your muscles big, an implant that makes your blood stronger, a little organ that turns your white blood cells into super
Do
white
they
blood
get
cells,
bigger
a brain implant
penises?
that allows you to sleep while being awake, a pre-stomach that allows you to digest literally anything,
Or do
a
they have the
spinal
same
implant that
penis?
allows you to absorb the genetic memories of what you eat, bigger and better lungs that can let you breathe underwater, an implant
do they
that
have
gives
nothing?
you stronger eyes, new ears that keep you from being dizzy, a brain implant that lets you go into suspended animation if you're in a bad shape, skin that acts like transition glasses.
They
I
have
almost got it in one
nothing?
take, a brand new kidney, the ability to taste the air and find enemies
So
like a
all they have is a
bloodhound,
hole
special
to
coating
pee?
on your skin that allows you to be protected in space, the ability to spit acid, a gland that allows you to absorb the unique genetic makeup from the gene seed in the first place, and a straight-up carapace that allows the Space Marine to interface with their power armor directly. Quite often, these are put inside of you at dubious levels of mental alertness and dubious levels of anesthetic. After a more generalized indoctrination into the faith of the Imperium and a bit more training and other important manners, they can finally be welcomed as a fully fledged Space Marine. A Space Marine is quite literally a walking tank that is armed to the teeth. Two of the more iconic weapons held by a Space Marine are their bolt gun,
It kind of reminds me of Gears of War, I'm not gonna lie.
And a chainsaw.
I wonder if Gears of War was like kind of loosely based off of Warhammer shit. Because like now that I think about it, they kind of look very similar with their like their guns and their armor and how they look like proportionally.
The Space Marine is clad in a colorful carapace known as power armor, crafted from extremely heavy and durable ceramite. The power armor of a Space Marine protects him from any terrors he may face, be it the void of space itself to an inhospitable atmosphere. This armor, combined almost biologically with an already massive physique, makes the Space Marine an almost unstoppable fighting force. And hell, if the armor doesn't protect them enough, they can always become a walking coffin like the dreadnoughts in the chapters are. What truly adds to it all, however, is the sheer difference in some of them. While a Space Marine in its own right is an indoctrinated freight train on legs, how they act can be quite different from chapter to chapter. The gene seed of a Primarch is not just helping them become big and strong, but allows them to gain certain traits from their forefathers. Everything from how they think to even slightly adjusting their physical appearance once it's been implanted, the gene seed can be the personality of an entire Space Marine. Take the Salamanders, for example. Salamanders have a predisposition to fire as a whole, and tend to be extremely large due to the size of their Primarch, Vulcan, and his enormous stature. Whereas someone like Sanguinian.
Also, aren't salamanders, they have like really dark skin? Like, isn't that one of their biggest traits?
Yes, Primarch of the Blood Angels share more vampiric features and more angel-like qualities. A gene seed is not just aspects of the Primarchs, but they are also flaws too. Magnus the Red and his 1,000 Sons underwent something known as the flesh change, a horrifying mutation that, while it made them strong psychers, would affect their bodies so terribly that they would mutate away from humanity. Where other factions have inspiration for their culture from our real world, like the feudal Japanese of the Eldar or Egyptian style the Necrons, each Space Marine chapter themselves carry an inspiration.
Honestly, the Eldar never really gave me feudal Japan vibes. I don't
are motorcycle riding Mongolian fighters. These Space Wolves are Norse
Wait.
Each Space Marine chapter themselves
I didn't see Obama. Why is Obama there?
Motorcycle riding Mongolian fighters. These Space Wolves are Norse Vikings. The Dark Angels are Knights of the Round Table, and so on. This moves into their fighting style, and truthfully, there is no end to the characters and options when it comes to the Space Marines. Space Marines are the main symbol you see, and while many of them can be simply indoctrinated warriors who only care about conflict and can be quite boring, then you meet Dante, or Bjorn, or Argel Tal, or Karn, or Lucius, or Erebus. And then you discover the wealth of these characters and tools of war you can have. For 1,100 years, I have fought and I have seen the darkness in our galaxy. I have seen the vileness of the alien and the heresy of the mutant. I have witnessed the sin of possession, and I have seen all the evil that the galaxy harbors, and I have slain all whose presence defiles the Emperor. I have seen what you will see. I have fought what you must fight, and I have slain what you must slay. So fear not and be proud, for we are the sons of Sanguinius, the protectors of mankind. We are indeed the angels of death. Despite being the poster children for Warhammer 40k as a whole, the presence of a Space Marine is a rare sight for the countless trillions of humans across the galaxy. Seeing one of these monstrosities is like seeing something akin to an angel sent by the Emperor himself. These angels of death are the essential fighting force to bring humanity back under the unified banner of the Imperium. Yet ultimately, the Space Marines are individuals torn from their their families and conscripted to genetic modification and lifelong service for the dying Imperium. And though they are held in an almost holy light, most believe they are above and beyond the people they are designed to serve. Once designed as the protectors of humanity, they seldom view humanity as something worth saving, to the extent that it is a tiny, minute rarity, though not unheard of, for a Space Marine to put a normal citizen above them in any way. For most Space Marines and even their Primarchs, they are only here to do a job. They are there to kill the enemies of humanity, and I would be remiss if I didn't add at least one more of my favorite quotes to the tail end of this section.
Isn't salamanders the ones that actually care about trying to save each and every single person?
Time for speeches is done, said Rogel Dorn. The first great test is here. My order to you all is simple, yet heed it well, and exert yourselves to see it done. They are coming. Kill them all. While the Space Marines are the spearhead of the Imperium's Great Crusade and also a major player in its warfare, there is a significant amount of importance that must be taken on their transport. What sci-fi universe would be complete without its navy? When you think of the navy or ships on the open sea, you think of something that is sleek, something mobile, and something pretty big. For perspective, the longest self-propelled ship in history was the TTC-Wise Giant, an oil tanker that was about 458 meters long or over about 1,500 feet.
Oil tanker.
This right here is child's play in the world of 40k ships. A ship that is considered to be an escort vessel in the Imperium is about 3 times the size of a Sea-Wise Giant, and the size of the ships only go up from there. Your most common ships are the cruisers. The light cruiser tends to average at about 2 kilometers long, or just over a mile in length, where the Dictator class cruisers can be over 3 kilometers or 2 miles in length. The largest ships are your battleships, and they are tremendous. We're talking 5-mile long, half a mile high monstrosities that look like gigantic Gothic cathedrals and filled to the brim with weaponry. And not only are they filled with weapons, but they are also jam-packed with crewmen. Battleships tend to, on average, carry a crew between several thousand to several million, and they need every single one of those members because we don't have advanced technology for other things to pilot themselves or control themselves in a meaningful way because there's no AI. A lot of this stuff has to be done manually. Even the reloading of those giant batteries is a form of manual labor. And of course, generally speaking, gliding through the stars is a very slow way to do things. And let's be honest, there can't be a science fiction setting without some form of hyperspace travel. This form of travel in 40k is less like going to Plaid in Spaceballs and more like going into Davy Jones' zipper dimension in SpongeBob.
Oh, now what? I suppose you're gonna show me. Oh, gee, that's very nice. Oh, what is this? Some kind of magic act?
Wait, why is this so accurate though?
This is because it utilizes the immaterial warp to do so. Warp travel is handled by a navigator, which is an abhuman. It's a mutated human, don't worry about it. And they have a gene that gives them a third eye and the ability to help steer the ship through the warp, which, as we know, is hell itself and unreality. Now, this might sound exceptionally dangerous, and that's because it is. Now, the ship does have protection in the form of a Geller field.
They have a third eye. I have a third eye.
The Geller field is what you think it is. A large force field stopping all manner of horrible things, like demons from the warp tearing apart your ship. How wrong I was, though. So space travel through the warp basically involves riding on the Sea of Souls. Hell is real and you can surf on it. So you allow the current to carry you and the navigator to direct. But how can a current of souls and unreality carry you when it doesn't obey the laws of physics, time, or, again, reality? What a Geller field is not a force field, but a comatose Imperial Psyker dreaming of reality. It is not a bubble. It is a force of reality being projected by mutant Sleeping Beauty to counteract the unreality of the warp that you can then surf on. This, of course, is not a foolproof method of travel, and Geller fields can and do collapse fairly regularly. Being subjected to the warp itself without this Geller field is a terrifying prospect. In the best case scenario, your ship will be torn to shreds. But there are countless instances of ships being thrown out of the warp randomly throughout time itself. You leave for a 2-day mission and you come back 90 years in the past. Maybe you feel like you're lost in the warp for a century and it's only been 45 minutes. And that is only if the waves of souls don't rip your ship apart or have demons arrive on it to do unspeakable things to the crew.
That's horrible.
The Imperial Navy is an astronomically powerful force for the Imperium because the sheer volume of ships and guns on those ships create firepower that can sunder planets. This is all juxtaposed with the sheer backwater nature of these ships. While they are manned by crews of zealots, they are also operated with such a backwater tech, it completely confuses the reader. You see the long batteries of portside cannons that the ship has, and remember that AI is heresy in this world and that all the mechanics are utilized by lobotomized slaves. So how do they load these? Well, they have gun gangs, massive gangs of hundreds of people manually loading these cannons.
Are these slaves or are these
genuine gun loader gangs that get into gang wars and squabbles.
What?
On the ship's bridge, you may find the captain himself hardwired directly into the ship's chair permanently to control it the best they can.
How does he use the bathroom and everything? This
hololith data fill the room, and sensors across the ship are just as likely to tell you information as a serf running up to you with a scroll of parchment is. You reach to a microphone to shout orders down a hallway as
from that
paper
chair.
readouts tell you information of the enemy, and holy sigils and candlelit incense burners gleam your next move. While the
Imperial Army
faction of the Imperium
should sorry
in the same
what
sense and format of this video, it is what shepherds around
Navy.
the entirety of its armed forces. Every Space Marine Primarch had a flagship, and every strike cruiser and battle barge has a story to tell. But if there is a single thing that the Shield of the Navy does the best, it is to help support and supply the monumental forces of the Imperium. The hammer of the Emperor himself, the uncountable men and women of the
Imperial Guard.
I don't care if these things have adapted to resist our las guns. If we can't kill them with our rifles,
Amisha.
then we'll kill them with heavy bolters. And if we can't kill them with heavy weapons, we'll use grenades. And if grenades
this
don't
Acadians?
work, then we'll fight them with our swords and our knives and our bare hands. We'll drown them in our blood. That's what it means to be a soldier of the Imperial Guard. Now follow me. Charge! There is no better symbol of the might of the Imperium itself than the Astra Militarum, or as it is commonly known, the Imperial Guard. Though the Space Marines take the glory and stand as the visual representation of the Imperium, their numbers are dramatically thin and specialized in comparison. To reclaim 1,000,000 worlds, you need a countless number of troops willing to fight and die for your cause. The Imperial Guard represents the Imperial truth made manifest. Every year, the worlds of the Imperium pay a tithe in the form of soldiers to fight the good fight of the Emperor, and this number is impossible to pin down. Even saying billions would be a dramatic understatement. The sheer volume of soldiers serves as the fundamental backbone of the Imperium. 99.9% of battles fought by the Imperium are fought by the sundering might of the Imperial Guard. With the knowledge that the Space Marines are essentially sentient tanks, what do the members of the Imperial Guard have? If they're the might of the Emperor himself, are they not suited up in a similar way? No, not really. No fancy suits, no biological enhancements, and basically no expectation to live. Once a regiment of Guard are activated, they are sent directly into battle with almost
Can regular Imperial Guard be psychers too, or is that not possible?
Expectations that they will survive. This is because, despite their training, their incredibly powerful armor and extremely strong weapons that would crush any army of the modern day, they are so hopelessly outmatched to the things they will face. Sending a member of the Guard is throwing a rock at a nuclear bomb. However, where they lack in advancement, they make up for in sheer numbers, and their overwhelming force can be the difference maker in any deployment they face. Quantity is a quality all its own.
Talk about
if they do happen to survive, they will be sent to the next battle, and so on. Seldom do members of the Astra Militarum get old or retire, and those that do are truly to be feared. There's an old saying that the average lifespan of a guardsman is about 15 hours from deployment, and considering the sheer number of guardsmen out there in any given battle, that number is probably accurate. When several
15 hours average lifespan? Bitch. If I get fucking drafted into the Imperial Guard, y'all, I'm taking myself out. Cause what the fuck?
Your pool of guardsmen die within the first few hours of combat because the orcs threw a moon at you, it can really screw the numbers. The soldiers of the Guard are conscripted and trained on an incredible number of worlds in the Imperium, and these worlds can impact their training and their combat style.
I think I'll just discover a new shrimp in a deep cave.
Cadian shock troops. But other
brings
notable
a tear
Guard
to my eyes. The Cadians.
Cadian shock troops. But other notable Guard factions include the gas mask clad Death Corps of Krieg, the Rambo level of Catachan Jungle Fighters, and the Iron Willed Morgian Iron Guard. This also helps them specialize against individual types of enemies. The Indigan Prefects are a special Guard regiment that came from a planet whose planetary governor, the leader of the planet, thought it was fun to collect exotic animals, which then crossbreed and then became the giant freight train-sized monsters destroying the planet. So the Indigan Prefects are specialized for big monsters. Hello, Tyranids. One particularly interesting officer in the Guard is the enforcement officer known as the Commissar, and they are one of the more visually striking members of a regiment. These are specialized Imperial officers and act as morale officers. But instead of singing songs to the troops and providing hot meals, the Commissars are there to make sure that the members of the regiment continue to fight to the bitter end. If a soldier does not meet the standards of the Commissar, the solution is simple. There are trillions of other soldiers out there. We don't.
My favorite Imperial Guard regiment are the Talon Desert Raiders. Their lush planet got nuked into a desert by traitor space marines who wanted to take it over as a new HQ and miraculously managed to drive them off the planet.
That's fucking awesome.
Really need
Chad
you.
energy.
Combat fatigue? Headshot. Concerns about the conflict? Headshot. Fleeing the battlefield? You bet that's a headshot. Considering
Chad
these officers tend to be
energy.
outside of their regiment, feelings on them can be mixed. And in fairness, certain commissars like the esteemed Ibram Gaunt or Caiaphas Kane tend to do a bit better with the whole people talking part. Because if, say, you were trying to tell a beefed up Catachan jungle fighter what to do, you might take a mysterious leave of absence inside a carnivorous plant. But no matter what I say, I don't think I can truly convey the sheer might of the Imperial Guard, so I'm gonna get a visual aid. Let's take a look at this image right here. Right? This is the cover of the 9th edition.
Hi, how was your stream? I saw you playing Expedition 33. What part are you on? Did you finish Act 1? She just beat Act 1. Oh, so how do you you good? Is she okay? Is she depressed? Is she copium? She's in pain. Oh yeah, classic. Little bit of emotional trauma. Yeah, yep. How does she like Verso? Is she coming to terms with it, or is she kind of in denial? It's okay. Couldn't take it seriously because her goofy ass costume and hairstyles in the cutscenes.
She got beat up by the Lamp Master and said the Lamp Master was you in a few years.
Shut the. Okay, no, I will never become the Lamp Master. I am my own person. Why would I become the Lamp Master if I'm literally the goddess of the sun? The way she changed outfits last minute. Would you mind telling your mom Happy Mother's Day for me? Just for that, no. Specifically, King Ken 04 didn't say that to my mom. Wait, does she like Verso at least? Maybe Gustav dying isn't so bad. Maybe Verso is actually likable, and maybe he'll become like even more likable than Gustav. Who knows? She likes Verso. New stuff is what we're calling him. Oh God. Still sad, but she was thirsty. She's not loyal. She's cheating on Gustav. I am a Gustav loyalist. I will forever be thinking about him. Girl, you hunted for a swimsuit. Hey, we're not talking about me. We're talking about Bao, okay? Cut. Sure, Gustav loyalist. I'm just giving what the people want. Okay, you guys wanted me to get his swimsuit because you just wanted to see, because you're perverts. Okay, I'm just giving what the people want. I can't not do that. I wanted it too, but not as much as you guys. Okay, I didn't mind not having it. I ended up getting a swimsuit for CL, okay? The least you could do is thank me. You guys love CL and her fat, juicy BBL. You literally asked if there was nude mods. No, I did not. No, I did not. Nuh-uh. When the heck did I ask for nude mods? Nuh-uh. You're lying. You're putting shit in my mouth. Yes, you did. Nuh-uh. I don't remember, therefore it didn't happen. If I didn't remember what I said, then it's not true. Hell, the turns have tabled. And if there's a clip out there, that's all deep faked. That's not even me. That's literally not even me. That's all that damn AI, and you believe it because you're so gullible. It's AI, trust. 2 hours 37 minutes in, you did. How the fuck do you have the exact timestamp? You're just saying shit. Not the timestamp. Not the receipts. And that's your first time chatting? Oh, you guys really want to see my downfall. Anyways, why are we talking about me when we were originally talking about Bao? We're not turning it on me. No, I didn't start it. No. Trying to deflect attention to Bao. Yes. She's very sensitive about game stream. That girl needs a hug. I love Bao. I love watching her play games. It's like very cozy for me whenever I see Bao playing games. And especially because I hope this isn't taken the wrong way, but to see Bao play games is like watching my niece watching my niece play games, because it's like she doesn't normally play games. So it's like cute when she does, because it's like she doesn't really know what she's doing. So it's like a refreshing point of view, you know? It's like, because when I play games, right, like like when you're a gamer, when you play a lot of games, you kind of quickly know patterns.
Nice to see you parry the allegations as well as you do in the game. Could learn
Shut
a
up.
thing from Bao.
Shut up.
I'm joking, I still love you, Yuzu are less than 3.
But like when you're not really a gamer, you don't pick up as easily, and it's like it's kind of adorable when you watch someone who's not a gamer. So I like when she plays games. I'm not calling her a noob. It's just I think it's adorable that she's not like a huge gamer, but she does still play games. It's not bullying. No, I'm not bullying. No, it's more of a compliment. I'm saying she's adorable. Is this elitist? No! Oh my god, you're twisting and turning something that was meant to be a compliment. You dummy. Gatekeeping? Oh hell, you know what? Just cancel me. Just cancel me. I'll G-word. I'll do it. I'll do it, chat. If that's what you want, I'm gonna do it. Cease. Too far. Cease. I'm gonna go mosh. I'm gonna go mosh. Watching Bao play video games is like watching a child. That, if you're gonna quote me, quote it correctly. I said niece. I said niece, not child. You're done. You're done. Anyways, we were watching Bricky's revamped Warhammer factions part 1. And then afterwards, you guys don't have too much time with me. I actually have something to do with my family, and a lot of them are already at my grandma's house. But after we finish this, I'm gonna hop off and then send you guys to another friend. So we will continue this. We will do this.
Codex for the Astra Militarum, the official cover art. Your eyes may be drawn to the dark and brutal looks of some of the main members on the front. And
currently, we're talking about the Imperial Guard.
But zoom out a little bit. There is no floor. There is only people. And behind those people are tanks. And behind those tanks are flying artillery shells. There are 2 enormous transport ships in the sky, and they're artillery shells.
Wait, that kind of looks like wings, does it not?
There are 2 enormous transport ships in the sky, and their ramps are down, and on their ramps are more people. The Imperium is described as having a million
Wait, that looks like
worlds.
wings.
A million worlds. And each one of them gives soldiers to the Imperial Guard for the tithe. On a given battlefield, in a given fight, foot soldiers number in the millions.
Another
tanks in
VTuber
the
gets
tens
bricked.
Of thousands, and you have
I'm
enough
all bricked
artillery
up,
to
chat.
turn the night sky day. You have walkers and APCs and aircraft and horse cavalry and tanks the size of apartment buildings. You have drop troops and spec ops and rattling snipers and gigantic
Wait, so when does
ogres that
Adeptus
can't count to 4, but they can turn you into 4 pieces,
fight?
and it just doesn't end.
When do they
Humanity
step
is a
in?
horde army, but instead of a horde of bugs or rampaging orcs, it's a living wall of guns. At the end of the day, though he's been ferried through hell on a ship that's 10,000 years old
Heretics
to some
and
godforsaken
demons.
war-torn rock, though he deployed from high orbit with nothing but a grav chute, though he is one of 10 million men and women snatched from his homeworld to fight a war he barely understands, though he has been given a weapon that fires small suns and may annihilate him as he fires because the knowledge of how it functions has been lost, though his company is supported by tractor tanks that run on anything you can burn, though he wages war against the devouring hive mind, ravenous demons and hordes of hyper-advanced aliens with strange technologies and sorceries he never dreamed existed. No one will remember his sacrifice.
Whoa.
There will be no records of his deeds,
What?
no glorious parades in his honor, and no remembrance of his name.
What?
All he will earn is a shallow, unmarked grave on a forgotten world untold light years from home. Yet for all this thankless sacrifice, a guardsman is a man, just like you. He has no millennia old.
They all fight for the glory of mankind, not to be remembered, just for the future of mankind.
Genetic engineering, no prophetic leader, no miracles of faith.
Thank
He
you,
has his last
Dabazor.
gun, his orders, and those beside him. He is the Imperial Guard, and he will hold the line. In the end, the Astra Militarum, despite fighting for the honor of the Imperium, are their own form of a massive horde army where individuality does not matter. They are merely numbers to the Imperium, and the vast majority of the conflicts they are sent to are attrition-based battles that gain virtually no ground while countless millions die. Yet this makes them the most human. For the Imperial Guard contains normal people who are happy and sad, people who laugh and love, and in there are stories, because there is strength in facing the horrors of the universe head-on with nothing but a rifle in your hands and a prayer on your lips. Armed with an innumerable amount of Imperial soldiers and Space Marines, the Navy begins its great crusade into the stars to rescue the stranded Primarchs and reunite them to their legions. But the biggest question needed to be asked was, what would they find? The age of strife lasted for thousands of years. If a civilization was still alive out there in the galaxy, what would they be like? The technological advancements of humanity prior to and during the Dark Age technology was unfathomable. It allowed them to spread through the galaxy with ease and allowed them to settle once inhospitable planets. These branches of humanity—
If you were in the Warhammer universe, what would be like the faction that you'd be in for your most possible, your highest chance for survival?
And you were provided with the vast knowledge of human creations and were given gigantic machines to make arduous labor and ease. The spreading of these massive colony ships was known as the Long March.
How is that
these ships would be retrofitted into settlements upon arrival to their new homes. Accompanying them were the gigantic pieces of farm equipment that served multiple purposes and the specialized pilots that could maintain them. They were not only able to tend the fields and do labor, but when interstellar communication was cut off, they also did a great job of protecting the colonists against both threats demonic and alien. Because of the significance of these machines, those that could pilot them were powerful enough to be considered leaders, and the upkeep and preservation of the machines and the lineage of those who could pilot them was imperative. These machines, over the thousands of years, would eventually be known as the
Imperial Knights.
He must be humble of heart, strong of arm, be savage in war, loyal to hearth, and follow deeds of glory. He must keep honor with all, banish cowardice from his doings, and bring his house no shame. He must serve the Emperor and defend the Imperium, thus should a knight rule himself. The Age of Strife caused these colonized worlds to be cut off from the Imperium, and the reversion of these worlds resulted in the reverence for this farm equipment turned feudal, and the leadership that controlled the devices became viewed as a noble hierarchy. During the Age of Strife, exploratory fleets from Mars found plenty of these worlds, and it seemed the majority of them reverted to a similar state. Like King Arthur seeing Merlin himself, these feudal worlds welcomed the tech priests of Mars with open arms. The mutual relationship between the Admech and the nobility was beneficial. The Admech were able to secure more worlds for mining resources and potentially long-lost STC information, and the noble houses were provided with technological know-how and modifications from the Admech themselves.
I just want to know what civilian life is like. Like, do they live normal lives, or do they just live their life in fear constantly, like 100% fear? Every time they wake up, they're like, oh, just another day, I might fucking die.
More and more specialized, and their history as mere pieces of equipment were lost to time. What was once a tractor became a
Depends on the planet.
and the Imperial Knights were born. Unlike other military aspects in the Imperium, the nobility of the Knight houses remains just that, a nobility-focused feudal hierarchy that swears fealty to either the Mechanicum or to Terra. Like the Knights in our history, once they swear fealty, they can be called to aid their respective allegiance in the heat of battle. The ones that swear fealty to Terra are led by the High Monarch, while the ones with the Mechanicum are led by Princeps. The ones with Terra might be sent directly to the front line of war, while the ones
you can't even masturbate without feeding Slaanesh.
And the
like, imagine you fucking shoot ropes and all of a sudden Slaanesh is eating your soul.
Allegiances here and there, your run-of-the-mill War of the Roses aesthetic. Except instead of ponies, you have gigantic death machines. These knights can't seem to be piloted by any old person, however. A member of the nobility of any given knight house must go through the ritual of becoming. This ritual involves them sitting on the device used to control the knight, known as the throne mechanicum for a full night. What's wrong with that? I mean, sitting in a chair for a full evening sounds pretty great right about now. So a pilot cannot drive a knight. They can, but it moves about as effective as Ripley from Aliens 2, big, lifter thing. It is, in a sense, a beast that must be controlled, and a pilot
Xenomorph.
must merge with it. The mind of the noble is connected to the machine and must fight with the mental signatures and personalities of the prior pilots as well.
What?
Everything a knight experiences in battle is felt by the pilot themselves.
That's kind of
be it
badass.
the general movement in the battlefield or damage sustained by the machine itself. If a knight's leg is blown off in battle, the pilot could experience a broken bone in the same spot. The merging to the machine forever changes the mentality of the noble that experiences it. This connection reinforces a strong degree of nobility and honor in the pilot, and a desire to fight for the glory of their house until the bitter end, as their ancestors' minds are linked directly
This
to
is
the
like
knight.
Attack
The
on
size of
Titan
these knights
shit.
can vary, but generally speaking, they stand in the ballpark of 30 to 50 feet tall and are protected by a thick adamantium armor. Beyond that, they have their own unique ion shield generators that give them added protection, and when it comes to their looks, the most common pattern across the Imperium is the Questoris pattern, and is honestly the one you're probably thinking about right now. But there are also smaller versions like Armigers and bigger ones known as the Dominus. As for a loadout, these guys are essentially a violent Mr. Potato Head. Battle cannons, Gatling cannons, heavy flamers, thermal cannons, up close and personal, how about a gigantic chainsword or a straight up gauntlet? And for that empty spot up top, screw it. More autocannons, maybe add some missiles. Whatever you can do to make it as over the top as possible, you gotta do it. A squire serves a knight serves a lord serves a baron, and a baron serves a monarch. So who does the monarch serve? He serves every subject, from the rudest serf to the members of the court. Chivalric fealty, when ideally practiced, is not a pyramid, but a circle. Ironically, on the surface, night worlds themselves are one of the least grimdark settings in the galaxy. Reverting to an ancient time with knights and peasants is almost an escapism from the techno hell of the modern Imperium. But this, of course, doesn't make it great for everyone. It sounds fun on paper to play a game of knights.
Every time he reads a quote, I feel like the phone that he's reading off of is like set on fire. Like I'm imagining that phone being on fire.
But it's not so fun when you're the peasant of that world. For the knights themselves, the knights give their entire lives to the throne Mechanicum, and their reality is not their own, as they have to hear the voices of thousands of generations of their ancestors controlling their actions and their lives for as long as they live. It's a strange dichotomy. When it comes to Warhammer, most to all jobs tend to be terrible. However, if there was one that could be considered enjoyable, it would be the pilot of a knight, or a princeps of their larger cousins. While it does contain an egregious amount of hardship to be a knight pilot, you do enjoy a wealth of privilege. A knight pilot is often an asshole who can back it up. The rich noble that, despite his braggadocious behavior, is still very much him, and he will continue to be him. But knights are not the only thing that the Imperium found lost in the stars during their Great Crusade. Due to the circumstances of the Age of Strife, humans were changing and adapting to their new homes they were now isolated on. Some of these humans evolved over thousands of years to adapt to these areas, and they were known as abhumans. Many abhumans found their way into the Imperial Guard or other lesser positions in the Imperium if they were not wiped out immediately for being too different from their human counterparts. But their abilities and appearance vary.
What makes you chosen to be a space marine?
Group of abhumans have made quite a name for themselves in the center of the galaxy.
The Leagues of Votann.
The origins of what will be known as the Kin start at some point during the Dark Age technology, where their ancestors left a planet that is very much Terra and went to the galactic core to mine it of its resources. They brought along with them everything that they would need for a long time.
Are they Warhammer
most
dwarves?
Important of which were the incredible AI-based supercomputers. Be it guidance, technical or philosophical, schematics, or the ability to upload the memories of a deceased explorer to gather information from them, these computers became an essential part of their everyday life.
Wait, that's
especially
huge.
Considering that the galactic core is one of the most inhospitable places in the galaxy.
What?
It is an exceptionally star-dense location, full of abnormalities, black holes, and sentient hostile nebula. Whatever that last part means. It is not a safe and easy place to make a living, and this only got worse thanks to the warp storms during the Age of Strife. In order to adapt to this area, these travelers perfected a genetic makeup that made their future clones to be more adept to the area.
Jesus Christ, these guys are
shorter and
OP.
more robust than their ancestors, and the need to procreate would be unnecessary because why risk messing up a good employee when you can just make a new one? These would be known as the squats, and they would all die. except for when they didn't. And now they are known by a different name. Most void-faring races have at least one cautionary tale of foolish explorers vanishing amidst its blazing stellar nurseries and strange anomalies. Yet for the Leagues of Votann, the galactic core has been home now for millennia. These squat humanoids would begin to establish themselves in the core, and their goals would be the same as their ancestors. Rock and stone!
Rock and stone!
Whenever one of them would die, they would know that that sucker would need to be uploaded to the machines like their forefathers did. But the original
Wait, so do Adeptus Mechanicus hate these guys since they have AI?
A technical resource for them turned into a ritual known as joining the ancestors. And the fact that they were clones at this point meant that the same copy of the same individual would be uploaded countlessly. The sheer overuse of these computers and the repeated uploading of redundant data has turned these once powerful supercomputers into your parents' computer after you installed LimeWire on it, and whose 50 Google Chrome tabs definitely contain information they will return to one day. So much corruption that these computers began to develop the makings of a personality of their own.
He kind of roasted me a little, though.
These would be known as the Votann, and the kin,
me when I have like 250 tabs open on my phone,
would revere them. The Votann still operate to this day, but the volume of corruption have made anything outside of their very basic
I have so many tabs on that sometimes when I create a new tab, it's like delete your previous tabs to open a new one.
Or data, it has become so corrupted and so incongruent that it takes a literal kin wizard to comprehend it. The kin, much like the dwarves of fantasy, exists nowadays as a mercantile species that constantly work to mine and manufacture. However, their capitalistic desires are dangerous. The biggest crimes a kin can face are being lazy, unproductive, and breaking a contract. Stellar conflicts have broken out
these
over
guys are
hundreds
kind of
years due to the
based.
breaking of a deal. So if you signed a contract with a kin, you best stick to it. Because of this,
wait, I feel like they're kind of becoming my new favorite faction right now. Why are they kind of...
The kin have been known to interact with other species in a fairly common manner. This includes humanity, who have met various members of the kin multiple times, but constantly considered them to be all a different species. Famously, the Imperium noted that the kin they referred to as the Squats were their own species and were wiped out by the Tyranids. Little did they know, they were still around. The kin are acutely aware of two things. The first is that the humans of the Imperium are deeply terrified of technology, so the sheer existence of the Votann is a secret as well as the truth. This extends also to the Iron Kin, sentient robots that are treated in the same esteem of flesh and blood kin, because kin is kin. The second thing they are aware of is where they're from. They are fairly confident that they are from Terra, and they know that if this secret was to be known by the Imperium, that the Imperium might want to take ownership of them and everything they built. So the more alien they are, the better. Now this sounds fine and good, right? What could possibly be wrong with these guys besides the hyper?
So they're like a newer race?
Well, we have to go back to their creation.
Or newfound race?
The kin are an entirely clone-based race made from the computers that are exceptionally difficult to recreate. These machines, the Votann, are becoming more and more unpredictable and derelict. If anything were to happen to these machines, it would be a twofold ending of the kin. New kin cannot be reproduced, reducing their numbers, and the existing kin would have no further purpose because the end that awaits them would be non-existent. The horror of the kin civilization is that the entire purpose of their lives is to do the best they can at their duty and upload all they know to the Votann. Their ancestor cores join their ancestors. But doing so is actually the thing that is killing these supercomputers in the first place. The ancestors were dead, but through the first truths,
they are their own downfall.
And though their eyes had shut long ago, indeed the ancestors were watching, not with a gaze from eons gone, but with the eyes of every living kin. Each generation was the embodiment of the ancestors cast anew by the Votann. The galaxy changed. Stars died, planets were destroyed, and civilizations fell. But as long as the Votann endured, the ancestors still lived.
They should just reveal themselves to the Imperium.
Quote from one kin. As you may have assumed, the Leagues of Votann are space dwarves with a corporate sci-fi motif.
They should just
do that. But they are still very much dwarves. They're squat, they're strong as hell, and they hold serious grudges. This time it's just more about your contracts than anything else.
Get it.
And so because
I mean, they're already slowly killing off themselves.
How
we might as well get it over with.
capitalistic dwarf would treat things. You misunderstand, human. I am not here to debate. I am not here to compromise. What you see as yours, I am taking for my kindred. You want to bargain? Torek, unholster our means of negotiation. As the Great Crusade continued, humanity would find their missing Primarchs, reestablish the locations of all of their various worlds, and finally reclaim what the Emperor was always hoping for. But eventually, all the Emperor sought to build would be his undoing. His original attempt to have all of the Primarchs
space
lead
dwarves even
his
have beef
great
with
armies and usher humanity into the better ages would end up crumbling down. And we will learn about how the Imperium backslides and the horror of the modern day of 40k in part 2. I will see you very soon. Thank you so much for watching.
Yay. Yippee, that was a good video. That was really well made. Good job, Bricky. I really like that last faction that he included. Oh, this was the thing that I was talking about. The Catan figurine that I wanted to buy, but it was so expensive. Thank you, Bricky. Yeah, not a moment of that was boring. Like, I genuinely, I don't consume as much Warhammer content as before, but I always love a good Warhammer session because, like, before I wasn't too into it because it was more, it's not as magic-y and fantasy as I would like it to be. But when I started playing Warhammer games and watching his videos, it became more interesting to me because of how in-depth and how expansive the lore is, and how tragic and sad everything is. And I love a good tragic and sad story. So this was pretty pog. I loved it. Here is the here's the link if you guys want to take a look yourself.